Chapter 1. You are the sum total of your habits. Watch your thoughts. They become your words. Watch your words. They become your actions. Watch your actions. They become your habits. Watch your habits. They become your character. Watch your character. It becomes your destiny. Lao Tzu. Have you ever tried changing something about yourself and discovered just how frustrating it is to do so? You promise yourself that you are going to run 10 miles every day and get back in shape. The next day, you convince yourself you'll start next week, when there will be less work pressure. Come next week, you finally somehow manage to get yourself out of bed and go for the run. You come back feeling good about yourself. For the next few days, you manage to drag yourself out of bed and go for the run. After a few days, you decide you've been working so hard, you definitely deserve a break. So you take a break for a day. Very soon, it turns into 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, and then you just never go back to the running schedule at all. Sound familiar? If any human being is honest with themselves, then they'll answer yes to it. The struggle to be better is universal to the human race. There isn't a single person on this planet who isn't struggling to be better in some area of life. They may have their life together in many different areas, but there's going to be some avenue of life where it's hard to be disciplined. For you, maintaining a regular workout routine may be easy. Perhaps you struggle with financial discipline, or maybe you struggle with eating healthy. The nature of our individual struggles are different, but you can safely assume that everyone is struggling with something. I'm saying this so you can take full ownership of your struggles with self-discipline. It is an essential aspect of the human condition. Rising above our base instincts requires a considerable amount of effort, just like cultivating a beautiful garden requires a great deal of work. Jim Rohn, one of the greatest personal development teachers of our time, famously said, "Your level of success will seldom exceed your level of personal development, because success is something you attract by the person you become." The reason why most people fail to make the changes and transformations they desire is because they focus all their attention on changing the results instead of working on transforming who they are. If there's just one thing you get out of this chapter, let it be this: life is always an inside-out job and never an outside-in phenomenon. You cannot change anything in your environment or your circumstances without first undergoing some kind of a personal transformation. Keep in mind that everything you are experiencing right now and all that you possess in your external environment is a reflection of the person that you are on the inside. If you want to change those things, then you have to change who you are at your core. Your habits will become your destiny. As you already know, I've been studying the lives of successful people since childhood. It all started with studying the lives, habits, and mindsets of monks in the monastery where I grew up. While they may not be successful in the material world, they are extremely successful in the spiritual domain. Over the years, I've had the good fortune of becoming acquaintances with some of the most successful people in business, politics, sports, and the arts. What I've realized is that all successful people have some things in common. It is these key factors that contribute to their success and distinguish them from the masses. This difference lies in their mindset and habits. It boils down essentially to two things: what they believe about themselves and the actions that they consistently take on a daily basis. Let us first try to understand exactly what a habit is. A habit is an action or behavior that is repeated consistently. Most of our habits run on autopilot, We repeat them without much conscious awareness of what we are doing. For instance, you wake up in the morning and head to the bathroom. Even if you're still half asleep, you automatically reach for the toothbrush and start brushing your teeth. Brushing your teeth every morning is a habit that has become deeply embedded into your subconscious mind. As a child, your parents instilled this habit in you by sending you to the bathroom every morning to brush your teeth. You've been doing it your entire life, so now it has become second nature. Everything that you are or you believe you are can be boiled down to the habits you have adopted in your life, both good and bad. If you think about it, then you'll realize that the state of your bank account is a reflection of your financial habits. The reflection you see in the mirror or the weight on the scale is a reflection of your health and fitness habits, or a lack thereof. Your career is a reflection of your work habits. It's very easy to push blame onto something external. Most people don't succeed in life because they want to change everything except the one thing that is actually the most important factor when it comes to determining their failure or success, their own self. This is also one of those characteristics that I've seen all successful people have, their ability to take radical responsibility. If you want to change your life, then you have to take radical responsibility for everything that is happening in your life right now. This isn't about feeling guilty or bashing yourself for the things that aren't going right. It's about taking full responsibility for the fact that you and you alone have the power to change your life. If you can create circumstances and situations that you don't like, then you also have the power to create the kind of life you want. It is all in your hands. You are the only true architect of your destiny. Indeed, there are always going to be external circumstances over which you have limited or perhaps no control. But the most important thing is always going to be how you are responding to them. It is a tough pill to swallow, but if there is any area of your life that isn't working for you, then this is the time for you to sit down and analyze all of the habits you are consciously and unconsciously indulging in. For instance, if you are constantly finding yourself in financial hardship, then you must analyze your money managing habits. How much money are you spending and on what? Are you living within your means or above your means? What are you buying and when? Are you investing your money? Are you studying to develop financial literacy and better money management skills? There isn't any circumstance in life that cannot be changed through positive habits. In fact, the undesirable circumstances in your life are often a result of your negative habits. I know it's hard to take ownership of this fact, but if you can do it, then nothing can prevent you from changing your life. We're often the ones standing in our own way. The greatest battle you will ever have to fight in life is always going to be with yourself. There are two selves that each one of us has, a higher self and a lower self. Even the most spiritually evolved person is constantly feeling the pull of these two selves. The higher self inspires us to rise above our weaknesses and shortcomings. The path we need to pursue in order to connect with our higher self is often a difficult one. However, in the overall lifelong journey of self-development, it is deeply gratifying. The lower self, on the other hand, seeks short-term pleasure. It tells us to eat pizza and go out partying one day before an important exam. It tells us to procrastinate on writing that important business report by watching TV all night. It tells us to get an extra hour or two of sleep when we know we should get out of bed and work out. You're always going to have these two voices in your head. Even through years of self-development, there are days when I struggle with getting out of bed to meditate in the morning. There are days when I want to eat something that isn't good for me. And I'm awfully tempted to do so. Believe me, there isn't a single person in this world who isn't constantly torn between these two voices. The only thing that distinguishes successful people from those who seem to constantly fail is the fact that the former have mastered the art of connecting to the voice of their higher self consistently and regularly. They may allow their lower self to have a say every now and then. We are all human, after all. However, they avoid turning it into a habit. In other words, as something which happens frequently enough to become an unconscious pattern of behavior. Anything that you do consistently becomes a habit. By that logic, if you want to change your habits, then you have to start by changing your actions. The role of self-identity. What you believe about yourself affects your behavior and your habits. You can't effectively change your behavior and your habits without also working on your sense of self-identity. The good news is that consciously adopting positive habits helps in reinforcing positive beliefs about yourself. Let me explain this better with an example. Let us say that you struggle with eating healthy. No matter how hard you try, you eventually end up eating that slice of pizza or junk food that you're trying so hard to resist. Every time you eat something you feel you shouldn't be eating, you'll feel plagued by self-loathing and disgust. You call yourself names. I'm such a loser. I'm always going to be fat. I'm such an unhealthy eater. Now, there were days when you did eat healthy, but as soon as you slip, you find yourself chastising yourself. You forgot that you did manage to eat healthy for 3 days, and it was only on the 4th day that you slipped. This boils down to the importance of self-identity. You formed a self-identity based on the beliefs you have adopted and the behavioral patterns you have internalized. Our self-identity is the sum total of all our beliefs and behavioral problems. It is formed from an early age through the feedback of our primary caregivers, teachers, and other important individuals who exercise a considerable amount of influence on our life during our formative years. So a child who is told, "You are not good enough," comes to believe that they are not good enough, and that is why they could never score well in their exams. They adopt poor study habits because why bother when they're not good enough after all? Going back to the first example from earlier in this section, if your self-identity dictates the idea that you are an unhealthy eater, then the new habits you're trying to implement would take a long time to stick. You'll keep reverting back to your old habits, and every time it happens, your negative thoughts about yourself will become overwhelming. The solution lies in working on your self-identity while implementing new, positive habits. You have to closely analyze what your beliefs about yourself are before you seek to adopt any new habit. Tools like affirmations, incantations, visualization, and meditation are excellent for transforming your self-identity. At the same time, I feel these tools alone don't create a major transformation unless they are combined with consistent habits that validate the new self-identity you are seeking to internalize. So let's say you believe you are overweight. The proof is on the scale that you are clearly overweight. Now, simply telling yourself you're slim and fit isn't going to feel very authentic. You know that reality isn't aligned with the idea you're trying to get yourself to believe. On the other hand, if you keep repeating an affirmation like, "I am slim and fit," "I enjoy being slim and fit," while also practicing the habit of working out daily, then after some time, you'll truly begin to believe this new self-identity. The habits you practice help validate the new self-identity you're striving to form. As you get results that you can see on the scale and in the mirror, your new self-identity will solidify even further. It is important to understand that all these tools are excellent for transforming yourself and your life, but they work best when they're used in conjunction with each other and not in isolation. Affirmations alone cannot change your life. Affirmations, combined with new positive habits and other powerful tools of transformation like meditation, visualization, etc., are monumental as you begin to make these life changes. We can also say that words alone are never enough to change your life. Yes, how you think and what you think are extremely important, as our reality is formed based on the quality of our thoughts and emotions. Yet, we cannot ignore the importance of actions and behavior. Besides, what you think often dictates the behavior you would indulge in and the actions you're going to take. Motivation versus clarity. A lot of times we think that we're not disciplined or motivated enough, when the actual problem is our own clarity. If you decide that you're getting back into shape, but then you wake up the next morning waiting for motivation to strike, then you're never going to make any progress. To implement any positive change, you have to define exactly what that change is going to be and when it should be practiced and implemented. So if you want to get back in shape, then you can sign up for a group class at a nearby gym. This way, you'll know that every day, exactly at 6 a.m., you must show up at this class. There's no confusion about what you should be doing. The activity and the timing of the activity is clearly defined. You don't have to sit around and wait for motivation to strike when you know exactly what you should be doing and divert your energy to actually doing it. The key to self-discipline lies in knowing what you need to do with as much clarity as possible. It's a lot harder to remain disciplined if every day you have to figure out what exercise you should be doing and at what time. Consistency is very often an offshoot of clarity. So go ahead, define exactly what you need to do to implement a positive habit. Give yourself the time and dates for practicing them. The role of environment. The critical role that our environment plays in shaping our mindset, behavioral patterns, and habits is often overlooked. While you can overcome environmental factors, it's very difficult to do it consistently and regularly. It's much easier to foster good habits in an environment that supports them. Being within the confines of the monastery at an early age has molded me into who I am today. It is a lot easier to wake up at 4 a.m. and meditate when you're in an environment where doing so is the norm. If you are constantly surrounded by people who sleep till 10 a.m. and have little to no interest in living a healthy, productive life, then inadvertently, you are going to become like them. Indeed, with self-awareness, we can find a way to be different, but it's going to be very difficult. We are constantly influenced by our environment, and we're also constantly influencing our environment. This means you are influencing others just as much as they are influencing you. Although it is true that the degree to which either is exercising an influence over the other is going to be different. Now, I'm not suggesting that you pack your bags and start living in a monastery. However, I am suggesting that you become more conscious about the role that your environment plays in shaping your behavior and consciousness. As you're changing your mindset and adopting new habits, also evaluate your environment and see how you can change it. Do what you can to the extent that you are capable of at any given moment in time. Just don't ignore the importance of the environment, as it often plays a highly critical role in our success and failure. So if you want to lose weight, this could mean joining a gym where everyone is serious about working out instead of trying to work out at home. If you want to improve your grades, then you consider joining a study group where everyone has the same goal. The point is to surround yourself with people who are either striving to achieve what you want to achieve or have already achieved what you want for yourself. Where you spend your time, who you're spending it with, and how you're spending it are all critical questions to ask yourself, as these three questions are determining your future right now. Why small changes are better than giant leaps. Most people fail at changing their habits simply because the changes they're seeking to implement are too huge to be sustainable over a significant period of time. We're taught to think in terms of zero or none. It's either all or nothing. Having this perfectionist attitude can be beneficial in some aspects, but it can also prevent us from making any progress. Without a doubt, you should strive for excellence instead of being obsessed with perfectionism. When you focus too much on being perfect, it will hinder you from taking action. However, if you strive for excellence, you can certainly become highly functional. Being highly functional is the key to success in any area of life. Starting small and remaining consistent is better than taking giant leaps every now and then. Consistency is the most important element of successful habit implementation. You have to do something frequently and regularly enough for it to begin to feel completely natural to you. Again, starting small is critical here. Smaller goals are easier to achieve, and as you begin accomplishing more of these smaller goals, you can begin adding to your list of goals you want to achieve. Accomplishing these smaller goals gives you the boost of confidence you need as you progress. Over time, the smaller wins compound into huge transformations. It's also easier to remain consistent if something demands less time and energy. As you're making progress, you can keep raising the bar. It's all about incremental overload. The same way you wouldn't start lifting super heavy weights if you have never worked out in your entire life, it is also a bad idea to implement a radical habit change in one go. You have to build your capacity for it, just like you build muscular strength, by slowly increasing the amount of weight you're lifting in the gym. Hence, I always start small, remain consistent, and finish strong. Chapter summary. Every human being in this world is constantly torn between the voice of their higher self and lower self. The higher self wants you to do difficult things that cause short-term pain while leading to long-term success. The lower self seeks momentary short-term pleasure that often creates problems in the long run. Radical honesty and radical responsibility are essential for changing your life. Whatever you do consistently becomes an essential aspect of your self-identity. Tools like affirmations, incantations, visualization, and meditation are excellent for transforming your self-identity when they're combined with real-world changes in habits and behavior patterns. To remain consistent with a new habit, you must know with total clarity exactly what it is that you need to be doing and when. Do whatever you can to transform your environment so that it is supportive of the new positive habits you're trying to implement. Small, consistent changes become huge transformations over time. It's better to start small, remain consistent, and finish strong than take giant leaps every now and then. Chapter 2. Habits come from programming. We've been programmed from the time that we were very, very little about what we can't do, about what is impossible. Wayne Dyer. From the moment we're born till the moment we die, our minds are being constantly programmed and reprogrammed to believe certain things about ourselves and about our environment. The real reason why it's so hard to change our habits is because most of the time we focus on the outcome instead of concentrating on the beliefs that led to that habit. We touched upon the subject of self-identity in the previous chapter, but understanding this one core idea is critical to your success with implementing positive habits. In order to give you practical directions for changing your life and your habits, this requires building a solid foundation of understanding why you are the way you are at this very moment. Once you understand this, you can get to the root of your habits. The stronger your foundation of understanding, the more effective you will be in implementing these changes. In the next few chapters, I'll be sharing various methods to help you incorporate new positive habits and unlearn negative ones. Your habits are closely tied to your self-identity. Let's go back and discuss this subject of self-identity. How many times have you questioned your beliefs and how this has led to the results you currently have? In moments of frustration, thoughts like this may run through your mind. Why can't I stick with my exercise program I start? Why do I keep running into financial hardship? Why can't I eat healthy and stay on top of my fitness program? Sound familiar? When you ask yourself these questions, it adjusts your mindset to see your current circumstances and the changes you would like to implement. You must understand that the results you have in your life right now are the collective culmination of all the actions you've taken in the past. You did not get to where you are in a day, and it would be irrational to think that you can undo the results you have right now in a day or two. Both positive and negative changes take time to show up as ostensible results in your life. There's a saying that Rome was not built in a day. Every time that you're striving to build a new habit, you are indeed building nothing short of your own Roman Empire brick by brick. Be patient and trust the process. If you get frustrated when it seems like you're toiling without much change happening, you'll quit before your actions have a chance to compound into results. Great things take time to build. You cannot rush the masterpiece of your life. A grand moment of success is simply a result of successful habits compounding over time. We've been conditioned to think of success as a once-in-a-lifetime event that just happens. The world celebrates that one goal an athlete makes on the pitch, the insanely heavy weight a weightlifting champion lifts on that day he establishes a new world record, the massive profit a business owner makes within a month, etc. By focusing on these kinds of portrayals of success, we start thinking of any major achievement as something attributed to luck or just a major turn of destiny. We're never told about the days, months, years, and decades of hard work that went into creating that one pivotal moment of glory. As humans, we have a tendency to focus on the destination, not the journey. Success looks glamorous. Everyone aspires to be successful. What many don't see is the culmination of unglamorous trial and error, processes, and hiccups before the world can celebrate successful milestones. You walk into a theater and watch the most beautiful performance of Swan Lake. The movements of the ballerina look so effortless and graceful that it almost looks easy. Yet, if you were to try it, you'd know it takes years and years of training to move with such grace and ease on the stage. Underneath the pretty shoes lie bruised and battered feet that bear testimony to the work that went into creating such a beautiful and graceful performance. This is true for success in all areas of life. It's not what you do once in a while that matters, but what you do daily and consistently that determines your destiny. If you looked into the lives of successful business people, then you'll realize that, in most cases, they've all faced extreme challenges and hardships. They also failed many times, and at a much grander scale than any average person can imagine. Yet the world only remembers that tipping point where all their hard work, persistence, and perseverance accumulate to create a huge success. Over time, you become the sum total of the habits you practice frequently. There are no exceptions to this rule. In order to become what you envision, you must first identify who and what you want to be. Identifying these circumstances will allow you to better understand how you can adjust your habits to reach your goals. For example, as you went through high school, there was a pivotal time where you had to decide what major you wanted to focus on in college. This determined which university you would apply to, and, eventually, which school you would choose to attend. If you wanted to go to med school to become a doctor, or go to the best law school, you had to learn the characteristics, habits, and path that would lead you to becoming a doctor or lawyer. Along these lines, this is a long process. The same way it took years to develop your professional career, learning to build upon your own personal development will also take time. Self-identity and the subconscious mind. Any long-term change in habits requires a change in self-identity. From a very young age, we're conditioned to believe certain things about ourselves. We believe what we're told because, as children, we have a limited experience and understanding of the world to be able to discerningly reject or accept the ideas we're given. Unfortunately, most people never question where their beliefs come from, even as adults. They have accepted various ideas about themselves as the truth, never pausing to analyze when, where, and how those beliefs were adopted. Perhaps as a child, you were told, "John, you are so messy. Jessica, you are so horrible at math. Jamie, why can't you do anything right? Tina, you're such a sloth." You adopted these ideas that were given to you. This is part of your negative programming. Over time, you conformed your behavior to match the identity that was given to you. So now, when Jamie sits at a cluttered desk, he thinks of himself as a messy person. He doesn't try to change or transform the identity he has come to adopt. If he tried, then it would be easy for him to adopt new habits of living a clutter-free life. Even when he manages to do a marathon declutter, within a day or two, his desk goes back to looking like a war zone. You just can't change your habits without working on your self-identity first. The greatest challenge here is that your beliefs about yourself have become deeply embedded in the subconscious mind. Your subconscious mind comprises as much as 95% of your total brain power, while your conscious mind accounts for only 5%. Much of the activities we perform throughout a typical day are guided by the subconscious mind. This includes eating, breathing, digesting, and everything else we do habitually. The subconscious mind is a massive data bank of all your beliefs, memories, past experiences, habits, skills, etc. A habit, by definition, is an action that has been repeated so many times that it has become a behavioral pattern which is now performed on autopilot. The moment you start doing something on autopilot, i.e., without putting any conscious thought into it, you know that behavioral pattern has become embedded in your subconscious mind. Results take time. If you want to change your self-identity and your habits, then you have to uproot them from your subconscious mind. This is not an easy task, since some of your habits are deeply embedded within our mind, reinforced by years of habitual conditioning. Therefore, you must practice patience when trying to change your habits and your beliefs. Take consistent action until you get the results. At first, you'll feel like nothing is happening. You may even question how you'll ever experience such a huge transformation. Think of it like trying to break open a door that's been locked up for over a decade. The only way to get inside is by breaking the door open. You take a giant hammer and start beating at the door. You keep banging the door with the hammer. At first, nothing is happening. It may even feel silly to think that you can really break that door open with a hammer. But you don't give up. You keep banging it, and nothing budges for a very long time. Suddenly, you reach a tipping point. The door begins to budge. You start feeling hopeful, and you keep banging the door with the hammer. You're tired and sweaty. You're almost ready to give up. But then, something miraculous happens. The door finally opens. This is exactly how success is achieved in any area of life. Little by little, one step at a time. As you're working towards your goal, do not be fixated on just getting the results. Your journey is just as pivotal as your destination, and you'd be surprised by how much you will grow as you rediscover yourself on this new path. Every person faces their own set of challenges in a different way, based on their own unique life journey. Challenges are an essential aspect of the human condition, and there isn't a single human being who is exempt from them. We are all constantly fighting a battle between listening to our lower self and our higher self. It doesn't matter how accomplished or spiritually advanced a person is, the temptation is always there. Programming your mind for happiness. Happiness is not defined by how much you can accomplish and what you have accomplished. Everyone defines happiness differently. Although the problem with focusing on the reward too much is that it can compel you to put off your happiness to another day or time. Instead of appreciating small milestones that you've accomplished, you may find yourself saying, "I'll be happy once I've achieved this," or "I'll finally relax and start enjoying my life once I get this," or "I'll start living my dream life once I get to this point." If you attach your happiness to an outcome, can you say that you will ever truly be happy? I'd like to share a story about an encounter that I had a few years ago during a conference that I attended in Bangkok, Thailand. I was invited to speak at a leadership conference, and prior to my flight home, I decided to take a quick tour of the city. I've made it a habit to do charity work, no matter how small, every opportunity I have had to travel. Whether it was for leisure or work, this was something I learned to implement. I converted $100 into Thai bahts, which is roughly 3,400 Thai bahts. I simply wanted to disperse money to those that needed help. And to my dismay, there were many people that were homeless, both young and elderly, and many orphaned children that were ill and had no medical care. I crossed the street with 200 Thai bahts left, and that was when I encountered a disheveled woman and her child. She was sitting on the floor, cross-legged, and trying to console her crying infant. When I got closer, I realized that she had had both of her hands amputated. I reached into my pocket, took out the money, and handed it to her. She looked up at me, confused, and with tears in her eyes. I could tell how grateful she was. She mumbled something to me in Thai, barely audible, and difficult for me to make out exactly what she was trying to tell me. But from her gestures, I was assured that she appreciated my gift. I stood up and was ready to walk away, but she stopped me and told me to wait. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a set of black, pearly beads. To some, it may have been nothing. To me, it was everything. It was a representation of kindness and compassion. To this day, I keep this close to me as a symbolic reminder of gratitude. When I have rough days, I take these beads out and I count them. For every bead I count, I remind myself of all the things I'm grateful for. A loving family, supportive friends, a sound mind, a healthy body, and the opportunity to share what I've learned with others. The purpose of my story was to share with you the simplicity of happiness. It doesn't have to be something grand in order for you to feel or be happy. Happiness is an emotion that too shall pass. We can choose the feelings we want to process, and simply, we can choose what brings us happiness. The beads remind me of happiness and gratitude because they remind me of a memory that has a lot of meaning. It brings me back to a moment in time where I've shared happiness with another person. It also reminds me to be grateful for what I have and for the opportunities I have. A lot of us go through life focusing on the things we do not have rather than focusing on the things we do have. The subconscious mind does not care about what you want or don't want. It reacts to the feelings you are emitting. Therefore, if you emit negative thoughts, you're programming your subconscious mind to emit negative frequencies. In turn, this will attract unfavorable circumstances into your life. Every action will have a reaction. Understand that every cause will have an effect. What goes around comes around, and you reap what you sow. When you focus on the things you do have at the moment and practice gratitude, you're programming your mind to be positive. Positively programming your subconscious mind will then emit into the universe positive frequencies, only to attract favorable outcomes into your life. The key to happiness is gratitude, so practice it abundantly. Know what you want, and start being happy in the present moment. Finding joy in the here and now is a powerful form of gratitude. Did you know that happiness is actually considered a habit? Joy is a powerful magnet for everything good that this world has to offer. When you're happy and you're grateful for what you already have, the universe will bless you with more. This is how the world works. It is built upon frequency and vibration. What goes up must come down. What goes around comes around. The same way you expect to receive good if you do good, life works exactly in that way. If you respond positively, approach difficult situations with a calm mind, and maybe even add a little humor to life's obstacles, you'll breathe just a little easier. Life is meant to be lived and enjoyed, so live it well. That starts with being happy in the present moment. It's natural to be discontent with some things in your life. After all, we're all working towards a better version of ourselves. But in order for you to begin changing, you must first know what you want and know what you want to change. Take a moment to re-examine every aspect of your life. Look at the key areas of your life: work or career, wealth, financial freedom, health and fitness, personal relationships, time, how you're spending your time, and how much autonomy you have over it, education and personal development, and spirituality or giving, your inner life, and how you're contributing to society. I know this is a lot to think about at one time. All of us have strengths and weaknesses. You may have developed much further in health and fitness than I have, and I may have developed more spiritually than you have. The goal is not to point out our weaknesses in a negative way. This exercise is to help you see clearly the areas in life you want to work towards and gain from. Whichever area of life you have chosen to focus on, write these thoughts down and reevaluate them from time to time. We'll further discuss how you can develop in these areas as we move along the chapters. In the meantime, I want you to shift your attention to the areas that you have highlighted great achievements or mastery in. I want you to celebrate that, because it is very rare that we celebrate our achievements. That is a prime example of being happy in the present moment. When you look around you, do you have food, a family, a roof over your head, a job, a TV? Do you find yourself living a pretty comfortable lifestyle, despite some financial hardships from time to time? If you can answer yes to a majority of these questions, you are much better off than the 689 million people that are living in poverty as of 2019. Naturally, we are inclined to always want more. We have an iPhone 12 Pro Max, but we want the iPhone 13 instead. We have a fuel-efficient, decent-sized car that can take us to and from work, but yet We'd rather trade it in for a Mercedes. We have a Tory Burch bag, but we'd rather wear Gucci. By no means is there anything wrong with wanting more or wanting materialistic items. That is not the point I'm trying to address. What I want you to take away from this is that we can use these material items as a luxury or motive, but don't let that define your happiness. Instead, let your happiness be a culmination of adventures, travels, memories, experiences, and time that you have as you have seen and experienced life. If you find yourself constantly replaying your past or looking towards the future, you are missing everything that is happening in the present moment. You may miss opportunities because you're too busy dwelling on something you should have or could have done. Or you may not find joy in the little things because you're so caught up in what you want for the future that everything you have now becomes meaningless and miniature. If you find yourself struggling with being happy in the here and now, you are not alone. We all struggle from time to time in really learning how to be in the present moment. When you find yourself drifting away from your happy place and you're either replaying the past or you're stuck in the future, recognize it and bring yourself back to what you currently have. Look at the list of accomplishments you've written for yourself. Reflect. This is the time to reevaluate, but also remind yourself that you are a badass. You are unstoppable, and this journey of reinventing yourself will only build on your mental toughness. As you work towards formulating positive daily habits that will lead to the success you desire, find happiness in performing these daily habits. Fall in love with the process, and your goal will come to you at its own accord. This is just the beginning. Chapter summary. It takes time for both positive and negative changes to accumulate over time and become big results. Changing your habits requires a transformation in those aspects of your self-identity that have given birth to those habits. This requires work at the level of the subconscious mind, as this part of your mind stores all of your beliefs, memories, past experiences, habits, and skills. You must ask yourself what kind of person you need to be to have the things you desire. Again, ask yourself what kind of habits this person has, and then just start practicing those habits. There is no such thing as overnight success. Success is always a result of years of performing the habits that lead to that one grand moment of success which the world gets to witness. It takes time and perseverance to become successful in any area of life. Instead of being obsessed with the goal and thereby putting off your happiness for another day, it is better to find happiness in performing the daily habits that will lead to the success you desire. Fall in love with the process, and your goal will come to you at its own accord. Chapter 3. 2 positive habits that will help you break free from negative programming. Programming your mind with positive thoughts each day will go a long way to keep you from allowing external criticism to derail your dreams. Ken Poirot. The human mind is the most powerful instrument in the entire world. It can be used for creation or for destruction. What the mind perceives as possible, it can do. Whatever the mind rejects will be impossible for an individual to accomplish. The good news is that the mind can be programmed in whatever way you wish. You just need the right instruction manual to operate it for your benefit. Well, that's what this book is meant to be. So relax. You're in the right hands. It doesn't matter how difficult your current habits are to break. You can gain the upper hand by mastering your mind. You know you're acting out of habit when you aren't putting much conscious thought into what you're doing. You feel the instinct to do something and you act on it without paying much attention. Any action that is repeated many times can start happening on autopilot. You find yourself doing it without even realizing what you're doing. For instance, if you're in the habit of picking up your mail every evening from the mailbox, and you know that most of the mail you receive is advertisement brochures, you tear them up and throw them in the trash can. One day, there's an important piece of mail that looks similar to the advertisement brochures, and before you realize it, you've torn it into pieces. You wonder how you could do that. Why did you not realize what you were doing? This is the danger with habit, and also the beauty of it. You can program yourself to perform any task without much conscious thought. Hence, you can make yourself highly effective. But if you allow negative habits to take hold of you, they can lead you onto the path of self-destruction. No such thing as a good habit or a bad habit. The words good and bad can be quite deceptive. There isn't a universal yardstick for measuring what's good for everyone and what is bad for everyone. What is great for one person may be terrible for another. A better term to describe habits would be to classify them as effective and ineffective. A habit is effective when it is aligned with your goals and supports the self-identity you want to have. An ineffective habit is anything that takes you away from your goals, and perhaps something that is even causing you a considerable amount of harm. We can also call those habits destructive. For simplicity's sake, we'll refer to habits as positive or negative throughout this book, but it is very important that you remember this nuance at all times. There is no such thing as a universally positive habit or a universally negative habit. What is negative or bad, or positive or good for you, is very individualized. Take, for example, the fact that spending 4 hours every day on social media may be a terrible habit for a student who should be studying for their exams. On the other hand, it would be an excellent habit for a social marketer whose bread and butter depends upon their understanding and expertise of social media. Hence, it is very important to always be mindful of your goals. If you haven't written your goals, then go back to the previous chapter and rewrite your goals for all the key areas of your life. To steer your life in the right direction, you need a path. Your goals provide the roadmap to help keep you on track. You need to know with complete, or at least partial clarity, what you want, and then consistently continue to move in that direction. The interesting thing is, once you start writing your goals down, what you want becomes clear, even if you didn't start out with that level of clarity in the beginning. It doesn't really matter how slowly you're moving in the direction of your goals. If you're doing better by even the smallest measure, then you have ample reason to be proud of yourself. You are doing well. As we discussed in the previous chapter, when you start finding joy in the daily tasks and habits that are helping you get closer to your goals, you lose your fixation with arriving at the destination. The journey becomes its own reward. Start tracking your habits. To reach where you want to go, you must first become aware of your starting point. What are the habits that you currently have, both positive and negative? You have to analyze your current habits to see how they are contributing towards your goals. Easier said than done, I know. We perform most of our habits on autopilot with very little conscious thought. You don't think about most of the things you're doing throughout the day, let alone question them. How many times have you questioned why you reach for your phone as soon as the alarm clock on the bedside goes off? I think checking our phones is a perfect example of a compulsive habit. In this digital age, our smartphones perform the role of pacifiers and entertainers. Think about it. Whenever you are in an uncomfortable social situation, what do you do? If you're like the vast majority, then you most certainly reach for your phone. It helps give you this feeling that you're doing something important and not just standing alone waiting for someone to come up and talk to you. We all do it, and there's nothing to be ashamed about. However, the irony of this situation is that it occurs at an unconscious level. You don't think about what you're doing. You just do it. Similarly, whenever we're feeling bored, anxious, or negative, we turn to our phones to provide us with a dopamine rush. We end up spending hours and hours mindlessly scrolling the internet. It provides us with an escape from what's troubling us in our immediate reality. I think it is both incredibly brilliant and outrageously dangerous to always have the world available to us at our fingertips. Be smart about how you utilize technology. Control how much internet you consume, and don't let it consume you. Of course, there are many positive habits that you have as well, which you perform on autopilot. For instance, no matter how groggy or sleepy-eyed you are, every morning you go into the bathroom, grab your toothbrush, put some toothpaste on it, and start brushing your teeth. You don't think about what you're doing or why you're doing it. You've built the muscle memory of performing this action so many times that now you just automatically reach for that toothbrush and toothpaste. If someone left a cream in place of that toothpaste, you'd most likely apply that to your toothbrush, only to realize after a few seconds what you've done. We've all been there, haven't we? You aren't consciously reading the label that's on the toothpaste every time you reach for it. Your hands reach out for the tube on autopilot, and you perform the action of applying the toothpaste to the toothbrush without any conscious thought. So from now on, I want you to start becoming conscious about all your habits, both positive and negative ones. This isn't going to be easy, as you'll have to constantly check in with yourself and question what you're doing in that moment, even if what you're doing in that moment is something you've been doing your entire life. Positive habit 1, mindfulness. Once you start becoming conscious of and observant towards what you're doing, it becomes easier to mold your behavior to match your goals. Mindfulness is a powerful tool for bringing your complete focus into the present moment and to develop greater self-awareness. Very often, when we're doing something, we're performing the action only with the body. The mind is busy elsewhere, thinking about the past or the future. Being mindful implies being fully present in the current moment with your body, mind, and soul. Here's a simple question that I want you to start asking yourself. Maybe you can set a reminder on your phone for every hour. The question is, where is my mind? Where is my body? Where is my soul? Is your mind busy in the past or in the future? Is it thinking about all the places where it would like to be right now? Or is it fully present in the moment? Are you fully inhabiting the space you are in with your physical body? Or are you tense and uncomfortable in it? Fully inhabiting a space implies being comfortable with the physical space you are in. Your muscles would be relaxed, and there wouldn't be any tension in your body. When you allow yourself to fully be present in the moment, you are recentering your body and mind to give 100% of yourself to what you are doing. Therefore, you give it your all, your very best. It doesn't matter what you are working on, big or small. Taking the time to appreciate what is occurring in that moment, really appreciating the now, is learning to fully develop mindfulness. I am a strong believer in the idea that how you do anything is how you do everything. This is why soldiers in the army are trained to make their bed a certain way, or why monks in the monastery are taught to do seemingly small chores with a great deal of excellence. The way you make your bed every morning sets the precedent for how much effort you're going to put into your day. If you're taking the small tasks lightly, then it is likely that you would take the big tasks lightly as well. The solution lies in doing everything with your body, mind, and soul. Fully inhabit your body within the physical space you are in by relaxing all your muscles. Use your mind to think only about the task you're doing. When you put your heart into what you're doing, you're approaching the task with enthusiasm and zeal, not because of obligations. Now, you may ask, what if you really don't want to do what you're doing, but you must do it for various reasons? I will say it is better to not do something than to do it half-heartedly. It is absolutely not worth doing something that will make you resentful later on. You have to learn to say no. You have to be okay with people not liking you for it. If you feel saying no isn't an option for you, then in that case, it's better to change your attitude towards what you're doing. Don't see it as a burden, but as an opportunity to become better. In fact, look at every task you're performing as something that aids your personal development. This way, you'll never see even the most difficult tasks you must perform as a burden. When you say yes to things you don't want to do, but you also don't want to make other people upset, you are paving the path for resentment. In the long run, it's going to create a rift in your personal relationships. Saying no may be a better choice. It may make the other person temporarily upset, but being honest and authentic is better than doing something half-heartedly just to please others. Your happiness is your own responsibility. You must always make the choice that is best for you. After all, no one can pour from an empty cup. I agree that there are situations where one must put their own interests aside temporarily. Like a parent who must sacrifice their own interests to help their child excel in life. Even in that case, you must recognize the fact that you are the one making the choice. Doing the best for that child is your choice. This is just one example, but it holds true for all scenarios. Even when it seems like we don't have a choice, we always have a choice. Whatever you may choose, you must recognize the fact that you are indeed making a choice. Looking after your child is your choice. Staying in your marriage is your choice. Doing the job you're doing right now is your choice. Everything in life is a choice. You may say it isn't a choice because that's the only option you have, but that's not the truth. It's better to say that the other options are not viable to you. Not meeting your child's needs isn't a viable choice for you. Walking out of your marriage isn't a viable choice for you. Leaving the job you're doing right now isn't a viable choice for you. There's a lot of empowerment in owning the fact that whatever you're doing right now is truly your own choice. No one can force you to do anything. Yes, no one. Even if someone were to hold a gun next to your head and ask you to do something, you still have a choice. Your choice is between doing what is being asked of you to do or dying. Of course, those are excruciating choices, but they are still choices. So, start taking full ownership of the choices you are making moment to moment and day to day. Don't do something with an attitude of obligation or resentment. Recognize the fact that every human being has free will, and how you're spending your time right now is solely your own choice. Check in with yourself every hour, and if you're not fully present with your mind, body, and soul in this present moment, then bring yourself into it. This simple practice will help you become more observant and conscious of the habits you currently have. Don't take anything for granted. Ask yourself questions. Why am I doing this? Am I giving my best to what I'm doing right now? Is this taking me closer to my goals or away from them? Am I acting in alignment with the type of person I want to be? The more frequently you begin checking in with yourself and start observing what you're thinking and doing, the more successful you'll be with implementing positive habits that will take you closer to your goals. I can't underestimate the importance of self-awareness and mindfulness. Strive to perform even the simplest tasks with your mind and body. It's about building a habit. In order to continue developing yourself, you need to adopt habits of excellence. Being mindfully present in the current moment is the most important habit of excellence. You can't switch it on and off based on your own convenience. They say that the energy you put out into this world is largely received back. Well, it's no different in this situation. How you choose to live your everyday life can speak volumes. Remember, how you do anything is how you do everything. So you must always strive for excellence, giving your absolute best self at every moment of your life. Positive habit 2, positive self-talk. The most important conversation you're going to have is always going to be with yourself. How you think about yourself determines the quality of dialogue you're going to have with your internal self. How you talk to yourself determines your actions. Your actions impact your destiny. Hence, it is very important to understand what you think about yourself. If you are constantly chiding and belittling yourself, then you may be creating a destiny that you don't really want for yourself. Most people focus too much on outer success without giving ample attention to the inner environment that gives birth to outer success. You can never achieve outstanding results without first becoming an outstanding person. For this, you have to start by accepting and loving yourself unconditionally. Once you start becoming more self-aware about what you're doing throughout the day, I also want you to start becoming attentive to how you are talking to yourself throughout the day. Take your time with the first task. Trying to do everything at once may feel too overwhelming. For a week or two, just pay attention to your actions. Once you become significantly more self-aware about your actions, you can also start analyzing your self-talk throughout the day. Every hour that you check in with yourself to see how you are doing, what you are doing, and whether you're doing it with complete mindfulness or not, you can also start asking yourself, how am I talking to myself? What am I saying to myself? More often than not, we are highly critical of ourselves. We weren't born like that. Just look at a baby. There isn't an ounce of self-loathing inside a newborn baby. Babies love all their body parts. They also believe they can be and do anything they want. As they start growing up, the world tells them how they aren't good enough, what they can and can't do. Don't forget that, once upon a time, you were also that tiny baby, totally in love with yourself. You believed anything and everything was possible for you. At some point, the world drilled into you this idea of who you can and cannot be. You were criticized so many times that now, even as an adult, the voice of your teachers, parents, and others who played a key role in your formative years rings in your ears. This voice says things like, why can't you do anything right? Why are you so dumb? Why do you have to mess up everything? You are good for nothing. You're so stupid. You deserve to be ashamed of yourself. Sound familiar? How many times in the past week have you shown your appreciation to yourself? But if I asked you to recall how many times you felt bad about yourself, or when you chided yourself, I'm sure you would have a long list of instances. Everything you are experiencing, the reality that you have created, is based on all the decisions you've made in the past. All of your previous thoughts, speech, and actions have led up to this moment. People are always trying to change their results without realizing that what they currently have is a sum of their previous choices. Instead, focus on the thoughts, speech, and action in the present moment, and it will surely change the course of your direction for the future. Life is always an inside-out job, and trying to fix things from the outside in is never going to work. One of the best habits that you can adopt for building self-confidence and for boosting your self-image is the practice of positive self-talk. You have to first become observant of the self-talk you're constantly engaging in. When you catch yourself saying something negative to yourself, replace it with something positive. For instance, if you're saying to yourself, "I'm terrible with directions," you can immediately replace that with, "I'm good with directions." Of course, your mind is going to tell you you're lying, at least in the beginning. It's okay. That's normal and to be expected. The thing is, saying you are terrible with directions is an idea. The idea gives birth to your actions that eventually become a behavior. That's when you start taking statements like these as facts about yourself. In the case of the above example, once you allow the idea that you are terrible with directions to become rooted in your consciousness, you'll close your mind to all possibilities of ever getting better with it. What's the point of trying when I already know I'm terrible at it? This is going to become your mindset. Even if you tried reading a map, you won't truly try reading it with the mindset of wanting to understand it. Your mind is prepared to fail because your self-belief dictates that you are terrible with directions. You'll never make an honest and authentic attempt to really try to understand directions. Your mind will constantly keep collecting proof to prove that this is the truth. Over time, you'll collect more evidence by failing at the task of comprehending or delivering proper directions. The more evidence you gather by the fulfillment of your self-fulfilling prophecies, the more firmly you'll believe that what you think about yourself in that context is the truth. The stronger your belief gets, the harder it would be to change your actions and behavior. While this is a small example, if you'll start paying closer attention to all your self-talk, you'll realize that most of them are rooted in negative self-belief. To change negative self-belief, you must start talking positively with yourself. Over time, don't just say certain things to yourself, but try to truly believe it by acting on what you are saying. Like, if you are bad with directions, then try to figure out exactly how you can improve yourself and then make a genuine effort to improve them. As you practice self-talk and keep making these efforts at self-improvement, eventually your self-image will begin to change. When that happens, you can be sure that your destiny is also going to change. It's all in your own hands. Chapter summary. You know you're acting out of habit whenever you're doing something you aren't putting much conscious thought into. There's no such thing as good or bad habits. Your habits can only ever be effective or ineffective at getting you closer to your personal goals. Positive habits are those habits that take you closer to your goals. Negative habits are habits that take you away from your goals. To minimize your negative habits, you must practice greater self-awareness by becoming conscious of and observant towards your current habits. Whether you're doing something big or small, do it with body, mind, and soul. Set a reminder on your phone for every hour. The question is, where is my mind? Where is my body? Where is my soul? Every hour that you check in with yourself to see how you are doing, what you are doing, and whether you're doing it with complete mindfulness or not, you can also start asking yourself, how am I talking to myself? What am I saying to myself? Accept and love yourself unconditionally. Start transforming all your negative self-talk into positive self-talk. Replace your I can't with I can. Match your actions to reinforce the new self-image you are trying to build. Chapter 4. Repetition is the key to mastering any new habit. Repetition of the same thought or physical action develops into a habit, which repeated frequently enough, becomes an automatic reflex. Norman Vincent Peale. What you repeat, you become. This is one of those laws of nature that stands to be true without any exceptions. It's very hard to unlearn something that has become part of your muscle memory. You become programmed to keep repeatedly doing the same action over and over again. This is both a wonderful and a dreadful thing, depending upon the habit we're talking about. In the case of positive habits, it's wonderful because you don't have to spend a lot of brain power thinking about what you're going to be doing and working out important details related to it. You just jump onto the task of getting down and dirty. Think about it. You don't need to make much effort to brush your teeth, take a shower, or eat your breakfast in the morning. You do these things without expending much brain power. The cycle of repetition is also very hard to break once you've adopted a bad habit. You have pretty much programmed yourself to keep performing the negative habit on autopilot. The vast majority of the time, you may not even realize what you're doing until you put some conscious thought into it and practice mindfulness. Even that may be extremely difficult at times, and you may have to ask others to point out to you whenever you are repeating the undesirable action. Hence, unlearning an old habit is extremely difficult and challenging, but not impossible. You have to be willing to put in the effort and know that it is always going to require conscious effort. I'll show you how to do it in the next chapter. The beauty of the mind lies in how moldable it is. You can train yourself to do just about anything, and you can become anyone you want to be. All possibilities exist within you. Your mind has the power to take you wherever you want to go. Think of your mind as if it's a powerful luxury car that can take you to any destination that you want to go to. You just need to learn how to drive and navigate it properly. In this chapter, we will go deeper into how you can build positive habits that take you closer to your goals. Write down your current habits. In the previous chapter, we discussed the importance of becoming conscious of your current habits. Now, I would suggest that you write down all the habits you are performing throughout the day. I know that sounds cumbersome, but you need a proper analysis of your time to understand where you're starting from. Only then would you be able to design your life and utilize your time in the most efficient manner possible. To make this simpler, I suggest you divide the day into 3 to 5 intervals. So, for instance, if you wake up at 6, then your day starts at 6, and the first interval can be from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. It can also be from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. or 11 a.m. Pick a duration that doesn't sound too cumbersome for you to track. If you're comfortable tracking your habits in time slots of 3 hours, then do that. If you prefer to track them over a period of 5 hours, then do that. You have to figure out what works best for you. Tracking all your habits through an entire day may seem too intimidating at first, so I'll suggest that you track your habits for just one time slot for a week. So, for an entire week, track what you're doing from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m., or whatever duration you've picked. At the end of the week, analyze the data you've collected to make a list of your daily habits that you perform in this time slot every morning. In the next week, pick the next consecutive time slot and repeat the same task all over again with this new time slot. Just make sure that you keep the duration of the time slots the same. If you prefer to track your habits over a 3-hour duration, then stick with it. If you prefer 4 hours, then do the same for all the time slots. At the end of each week, analyze all the habits you're regularly engaging in within the particular time slot of your day. Make a list of the positive habits that you are moving closer to your goals, and a list of the negative habits that are taking you away from your goals. We'll discuss how you can unlearn the negative habits when we get to the next chapter. For now, let's focus on sustaining your positive habits and adding new ones that will take you closer to your goals. You don't have to change anything right now. Just become more observant. I know it's hard to not want to change everything in one go, but trust me, moving slowly and steadily is better than leaping forward fast and furious. If you try to do too many things at once, then you'll quickly burn out. Just like habits take time to build, change doesn't occur overnight. It takes time to change anything. To ensure the changes you are implementing will fortify into a habit, it is better to approach change gradually and slowly. The mind can also become easily overwhelmed when you try loading it with too much pressure to do too many things at once. Focus on just becoming more mindful and observant for now. That really is half the battle won already. Changing your habits is significantly easier once you've mastered the art of being observant and mindful of your own actions throughout the day. By doing this simple exercise, you'll collect solid evidence of how you're spending your time. You'll know which habits are supporting you and which ones are deterring you from achieving your goals. Again, it is very important that you complete this exercise in writing. You can't gain the same level of clarity by merely taking mental notes. Write everything down. It helps you develop an enormous amount of clarity that otherwise remains evasive. You start noticing patterns of behavior that you repeat throughout the day. You may also realize that you have far more positive habits than you had originally anticipated. This can feel heartening and encouraging. Also, with written data, you'll have solid evidence for exactly how you're spending your days, instead of just entertaining ideas about how you think you are spending your time. Knowledge truly is power when you know what to do with it and have the will to do something about it. How to add new positive habits. The next step, after you've spent some time simply observing your current habits, is to add new habits that will support you in achieving your goals. Now, you may have a whole list of new habits you want to add. However, adding everything at one time could be a recipe for failure. Instead, look at your list and assess your goals. Which are the 3 habits that will make the greatest difference in the pursuit of your goals? Pick either all 3 of these habits or just one, and see how you can add them to your list of daily habits. If you are performing an activity that is closely linked with the habit you want to build, then you can stack up your new habit on top of the old one that you already have. For instance, if your goal is to drink a glass of fresh fruit and vegetable juice every morning, and you already have a morning exercise routine of 30 minutes, then you can add drinking that glass of fresh juice to a post-workout schedule. A lot of times people fail at implementing a new habit because they simply don't clarify when, where, and how they are planning to perform a particular activity. You need to think it through in advance to know what time will work best for doing the new activity and where you expect to do it. Also, do a mental run-through of what performing that activity would look and feel like. Going back to the example of drinking a glass of fresh juice every morning, you can specify that this is going to be a post-workout hydration drink. You'll drink it immediately after completing your workout. For the sake of this example, let's say that you're doing the workout at home every morning at 6:30 a.m. At 7 a.m., you'll simply head to the kitchen post-workout and prepare the juice. Since you want the juice to be freshly squeezed, you can lay out the juicer and the ingredients you're planning to juice the night before. You can also pack all the items you're planning to juice in a resealed bag and place them in the refrigerator. Knowing the time and place of the activity increases the chances of performing the activity. Further, you've clarified how you'll be going about it. You'll decide the night before which ingredients you'll be adding to the juice and place everything in a resealable bag. Next morning, you won't be standing in front of your refrigerator wondering which vegetables and fruits you should be juicing. The decision has already been made. When the details have been worked out in advance, you don't have to stress your mind to figure out how you should be doing something when you're doing it. The better prepared you are in advance, the more likely you are to perform that activity. Now, what if you don't have anything in your schedule upon which you can stack up your new habit? In that case, I would suggest brainstorming the best time for adding your new habit to your daily schedule. Specify the time and place where you'll be performing it. Work out the details of how you go about it to make sure that you are well prepared to start doing the activity. Once you have successfully added a new habit to your routine, which implies you're now doing it on autopilot without much conscious thought, you can add 1 to 3 more new habits. Make sure that you are always only making incremental additions to your routine. Never add so much that you begin feeling burdened and overwhelmed. You'll end up being unproductive and feeling bogged down. Condition yourself to successfully perform the new habit. If the new habit you implement is something you've tried doing in the past with very little success, then I want you to start analyzing the negative associations you have with this habit. If it is something completely new, analyze the resistance you're feeling towards it. What are the emotions that it evokes in you? How do you feel when you think about performing that habit? You will definitely experience some form of negative emotions or blockage. However, I want you to write them down. Everything you are thinking and feeling when you're mulling over each habit should be written down. What you come to realize is that your mind will stop you from taking action, creating strong negative emotions that will hinder you. It may also get you to constantly procrastinate on adding the new habit to your routine. You're always telling yourself that you'll start once you're well prepared, or you keep putting off the start date to sometime in the future, except that future date never really arrives. Self-sabotage occurs when our mind is swayed by negative thoughts, and these thoughts become so vivid and loud that we block ourselves from what we can potentially achieve. All of us engage in some form of self-sabotage in one way or another. So, how do we begin to slow and eventually stop this process of self-destruction? Simply said, practice mindfulness. Recognize when your mind is drifting to a dark or negative place and bring yourself back. Recognize that it's okay to have these thoughts, but slowly replace these negative thoughts with positive, healing ones. Recognize that your mind and your body is in constant growth. Oftentimes, the process of self-development and growth takes practice. Personal development is the journey of a lifetime, and no matter how much you grow, you'll always experience this tug of war between your higher self and lower self. Learning to put your ego aside is difficult, but have patience that as you incorporate these habits into your daily routine, it'll become easier and second nature to you. You'll keep raising your threshold for the intensity of challenges you can handle. The more you grow, the more you can remain calm and collected, even during times of adversity. Your source of empowerment comes from your internal well-being. What you think, you become. Your mind creates what kind of world you live in. Eventually, as you build positive thoughts and habits, your external state of well-being follows. Your mind is a reflection of how you live, your actions, and what you believe in. Let's revisit the topic of negative associations you may have in your mind with regards to the habit you want to implement. It's very important that you begin to recognize what kind of emotions, feelings, and thoughts come up when you think about performing the habit. Recognizing that the negative feeling you have is not towards the task itself, rather, It may be a connection to a past experience you've had that correlates with the activity you want to perform. Therefore, to successfully implant any new habit, you have to get to the root of the negative associations your mind has made with that particular activity, and then recondition your mind to make new positive associations. Let us say that you are a student who wants to study mathematics every day for an hour. You don't get around to doing it because you find mathematics to be an extremely intimidating subject. Perhaps you had a teacher early on in life who made the subject so complicated and boring that you lost all interest in it. Since you're not interested in it, you don't make a genuine attempt to try and understand it. Since you don't make any effort to understand it, you don't do well at it. Since you don't do well at it, you've convinced yourself that mathematics just isn't your thing, and that you simply lack the mental faculties to comprehend this subject. Thanks to all these negative associations, it's very difficult for you to sit down and study mathematics every day. It's important to understand whatever you believe about this subject or about anything else is just an idea. Ideas can be changed, and when ideas are changed at the most fundamental level, our lives will begin to transform. If you can recondition your mind to believe differently about your relationship with mathematics, then you can begin to enjoy the subject. If you can get yourself to enjoy the subject, then it won't be so challenging to follow through on the daily habit of studying mathematics every day for an hour. Here's how you'll do it. Affirmations. Write down positive affirmations that counteract the negative beliefs and ideas. Affirmations are always written in the present tense, and they should be repeated as often as possible. So in the case of the example above, if the negative belief is, I am horrible at math, your new positive affirmation can be, I am excellent at mathematics. You have to create positive affirmations to counteract all the key negative beliefs that you are carrying right now. After that, just practice them as often as possible. The more frequently you repeat something to yourself, the more you begin to believe what you are saying. Create and collect evidence. Of course, in the beginning, your mind will tell you you're stretching a little too far from the truth, or that you're lying to yourself. This is normal and to be expected. You just need to persist in practicing your affirmations. Just observe and witness all the counter-arguments your mind is trying to create to deny the new ideas you are trying to implant in your mind. At the same time, start creating the evidence to corroborate your new truth. So, start brainstorming how you can improve your math. Perhaps you can hire a tutor who can help you understand the basic concepts better. Maybe you can buy a book that will help you improve your foundational understanding of mathematics. You have to figure out what will work best for you. For this, you need to know your weaknesses, and then brainstorm and implement the steps that you can take to turn those weaknesses into strengths. It really is as simple as that. Reward yourself. I cannot emphasize enough how important it is to reward yourself each time you do something successful. Rewards can be of different types. For instance, in one person's case, their reward after an intense gym workout can be the delicious protein shake they get to have on their way back home. Every time you push yourself out of your comfort zone and do something that doesn't feel comfortable to you right now, you have to reward yourself in some way. Whether the reward is abstract, like a feeling you get to experience, or something more tangible, like the delicious protein shake, is something you can decide. Just remember that what gets rewarded gets repeated. If you can change the negative associations in your mind that you have with performing a particular activity and replace them with new positive associations, then you can definitely get yourself to start performing that activity. Rewarding yourself for successfully performing that activity regularly is like reprogramming your mind. Give yourself credit for all the small milestones you accomplish. They may be small to you now, but when you look back days, weeks, months, and years from now, you'll realize those were actually some pretty significant steps you just took. Treat yourself with compassion and kindness. Sometimes we struggle creating new positive habits because we don't give ourselves enough credit. Think of a toddler who's just learning how to walk and take their first steps. They'll stand up, take a few steps, and fall. Eventually, they'll walk longer distances, take longer strides, and before you know it, they're up and running. It's essentially the same concept. You are that toddler learning to walk. All these new habits you are trying to create and build are new to you. At the beginning, you'll take a few steps and you may find that you've fallen. That's okay. That's the beauty of it. You've fallen, but you stood right back up and kept trying. So, instead of being harsh on yourself, start congratulating yourself at all your milestones, even at the slightest improvement. Maybe you decided to go to the gym, but all you were able to do was go for a short 5-minute walk on the first day. Congratulate yourself on that. When you can recognize that these are small but mighty accomplishments, that is when you develop the resilience and motivation to rip through the tides to get to your goal of building new habits. See this as a success, not a failure. Remember, small progress is better than no progress. Traditionally, this is not how we've been conditioned to think. Every time you came back home with a report card, you were chided for not getting straight A's in all your subjects. No matter how well you did, it was never enough. Over time, you adopted this critical attitude. Eventually, you became your own worst critic. Nothing you do is ever good enough. At some level, it may seem like this kind of attitude helps one feel the drive to attain bigger and better things. In reality, it demotivates us and makes us feel bad about ourselves. Instead, let's break that cycle of negative, self-destructive thoughts and try a different approach. Nurture your mind as if you were that toddler learning to take its first steps. Feed it with nothing but positive messages, encouragements, and strong words of affirmation. When you fuel your mind with positive energy, what you give out to the world will also be positive. Feed your own inner soul with compassion and kindness. If you tried and made some effort, you deserve to be encouraged, celebrated, and appreciated. Be compassionate with yourself if you've missed the bar. Practice saying it. It is okay. I will try again. With this approach, you'll be surprised by how much better you'll do next time. Whatever the outcome, remain focused, keep your mind clear of all negative thoughts, and don't lose track of your goals. Slow and steady always wins the race. You'll keep getting better every single day. I promise. It's not what you do every once in a while that matters. It's what you do every day that counts. That is what will create the life you want. Always act wisely and choose wisely. Enjoy this journey you're on. Embrace it. Feel it. You deserve it and are worthy of it. Be patient with yourself. You're doing so well. Chapter summary. Whatever you repeat most frequently, you become. Track your current habits and start identifying which ones are positive, taking you closer to your goals, and which ones are negative, taking you away from your goals. To change anything, you need to first know exactly what it is that you want to change. Add just 1 to 3 new habits at a time. Be sure to specify when, where, and how you'll be performing the new habit. The more specific and clear you are, the likelier you'll be to actually do it. To get yourself to successfully add a new habit to your routine, or to successfully perform any activity you don't particularly enjoy doing right now, you must change the negative associations you have in your mind with it. Practice affirmations. Take action to turn your weaknesses into strengths and reward yourself for successfully performing the new habit. If you're doing even slightly better than yesterday, then you deserve to be appreciated, encouraged, and celebrated. Become your own biggest fan and cheerleader instead of tearing yourself down like a ruthless critic. Chapter 4. Repetition is the key to mastering any new habit. Repetition of the same thought or physical action develops into a habit, which, repeated frequently enough, becomes an automatic reflex. Norman Vincent Peale. What you repeat, you become. This is one of those laws of nature that stands to be true without any exceptions. It's very hard to unlearn something that has become part of your muscle memory. You become programmed to keep repeatedly doing the same action over and over again. This is both a wonderful and a dreadful thing, depending upon the habit we're talking about. In the case of positive habits, it's wonderful because you don't have to spend a lot of brain power thinking about what you're going to be doing and working out important details related to it. You just jump onto the task of getting down and dirty. Think about it. You don't need to make much effort to brush your teeth, take a shower, or eat your breakfast in the morning. You do these things without expending much brain power. The cycle of repetition is also very hard to break once you've adopted a bad habit. You have pretty much programmed yourself to keep performing the negative habit on autopilot. The vast majority of the time, you may not even realize what you're doing until you put some conscious thought into it and practice mindfulness. Even that may be extremely difficult at times, and you may have to ask others to point out to you whenever you are repeating the undesirable action. Hence, unlearning an old habit is extremely difficult and challenging, but not impossible. You have to be willing to put in the effort and know that it is always going to require conscious effort. I'll show you how to do it in the next chapter. The beauty of the mind lies in how moldable it is. You can train yourself to do just about anything, and you can become anyone you want to be. All possibilities exist within you. Your mind has the power to take you wherever you want to go. Think of your mind as if it's a powerful luxury car that can take you to any destination that you want to go to. You just need to learn how to drive and navigate it properly. In this chapter, we will go deeper into how you can build positive habits that take you closer to your goals. Write down your current habits. In the previous chapter, we discussed the importance of becoming conscious of your current habits. Now, I would suggest that you write down all the habits you are performing throughout the day. I know that sounds cumbersome, but you need a proper analysis of your time to understand where you're starting from. Only then would you be able to design your life and utilize your time in the most efficient manner possible. To make this simpler, I suggest you divide the day into 3 to 5 intervals. So, for instance, if you wake up at 6, then your day starts at 6, and the first interval can be from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. It can also be from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. or 11 a.m. Pick a duration that doesn't sound too cumbersome for you to track. If you're comfortable tracking your habits in time slots of 3 hours, then do that. If you prefer to track them over a period of 5 hours, then do that. You have to figure out what works best for you. Tracking all your habits through an entire day may seem too intimidating at first, so I'll suggest that you track your habits for just one time slot for a week. So, for an entire week, track what you're doing from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m., or whatever duration you've picked. At the end of the week, Analyze the data you've collected to make a list of your daily habits that you perform in this time slot every morning. In the next week, pick the next consecutive time slot and repeat the same task all over again with this new time slot. Just make sure that you keep the duration of the time slots the same. If you prefer to track your habits over a 3-hour duration, then stick with it. If you prefer 4 hours, then do the same for all the time slots. At the end of each week, analyze all the habits you're regularly engaging in within the particular time slot of your day. Make a list of the positive habits that you are moving closer to your goals, and a list of the negative habits that are taking you away from your goals. We'll discuss how you can unlearn the negative habits when we get to the next chapter. For now, let's focus on sustaining your positive habits and adding new ones that will take you closer to your goals. You don't have to change anything right now. Just become more observant. I know it's hard to not want to change everything in one go, but trust me, moving slowly and steadily is better than leaping forward fast and furious. If you try to do too many things at once, then you'll quickly burn out. Just like habits take time to build, change doesn't occur overnight. It takes time to change anything. To ensure the changes you are implementing will fortify into a habit, it is better to approach change gradually and slowly. The mind can also become easily overwhelmed when you try loading it with too much pressure to do too many things at once. Focus on just becoming more mindful and observant for now. That really is half the battle won already. Changing your habits is significantly easier once you've mastered the art of being observant and mindful of your own actions throughout the day. By doing this simple exercise, you'll collect solid evidence of how you're spending your time. You'll know which habits are supporting you and which ones are deterring you from achieving your goals. Again, it is very important that you complete this exercise in writing. You can't gain the same level of clarity by merely taking mental notes. Write everything down. It helps you develop an enormous amount of clarity that otherwise remains evasive. You start noticing patterns of behavior that you repeat throughout the day. You may also realize that you have far more positive habits than you had originally anticipated. This can feel heartening and encouraging. Also, with written data, you'll have solid evidence for exactly how you're spending your days, instead of just entertaining ideas about how you think you are spending your time. Knowledge truly is power when you know what to do with it and have the will to do something about it. How to add new positive habits. The next step, after you spend some time simply observing your current habits, is to add new habits that will support you in achieving your goals. Now, you may have a whole list of new habits you want to add. However, adding everything at one time could be a recipe for failure. Instead, look at your list and assess your goals. Which are the 3 habits that will make the greatest difference in the pursuit of your goals? Pick either all 3 of these habits or just one, and see how you can add them to your list of daily habits. If you are performing an activity that is closely linked with the habit you want to build, then you can stack up your new habit on top of the old one that you already have. For instance, if your goal is to drink a glass of fresh fruit and vegetable juice every morning, and you already have a morning exercise routine of 30 minutes, then you can add drinking that glass of fresh juice to a post-workout schedule. A lot of times people fail at implementing a new habit because they simply don't clarify when, where, and how they are planning to perform a particular activity. You need to think it through in advance to know what time will work best for doing the new activity and where you expect to do it. Also, do a mental run-through of what performing that activity would look and feel like. Going back to the example of drinking a glass of fresh juice every morning, you can specify that this is going to be a post-workout hydration drink. You'll drink it immediately after completing your workout. For the sake of this example, let's say that you're doing the workout at home every morning at 6:30 a.m. At 7 a.m., you'll simply head to the kitchen post-workout and prepare the juice. Since you want the juice to be freshly squeezed, you can lay out the juicer and the ingredients you're planning to juice the night before. You can also pack all the items you're planning to juice in a resealed bag and place them in the refrigerator. Knowing the time and place of the activity increases the chances of performing the activity. Further, you've clarified how you'll be going about it. You'll decide the night before which ingredients you'll be adding to the juice and place everything in a resealable bag. Next morning, you won't be standing in front of your refrigerator wondering which vegetables and fruits you should be juicing. The decision has already been made. When the details have been worked out in advance, you don't have to stress your mind to figure out how you should be doing something when you're doing it. The better prepared you are in advance, the more likely you are to perform that activity. Now, what if you don't have anything in your schedule upon which you can stack up your new habit? In that case, I would suggest brainstorming the best time for adding your new habit to your daily schedule. Specify the time and place where you'll be performing it. Work out the details of how you go about it to make sure that you are well prepared to start doing the activity. Once you have successfully added a new habit to your routine, which implies you're now doing it on autopilot without much conscious thought, you can add 1 to 3 more new habits. Make sure that you are always only making incremental additions to your routine. Never add so much that you begin feeling burdened and overwhelmed. You'll end up being unproductive and feeling bogged down. Condition yourself to successfully perform the new habit. If the new habit you implement is something you've tried doing in the past with very little success, then I want you to start analyzing the negative associations you have with this habit. If it is something completely new, analyze the resistance you're feeling towards it. What are the emotions that it evokes in you? How do you feel when you think about performing that habit? You will definitely experience some form of negative emotions or blockage. However, I want you to write them down. Everything you are thinking and feeling when you're mulling over each habit should be written down. What you'll come to realize is that your mind will stop you from taking action, creating strong negative emotions that will hinder you. It may also get you to constantly procrastinate on adding the new habit to your routine. You're always telling yourself that you'll start once you're well prepared, or you keep putting off the start date to sometime in the future, except that future date never really arrives. Self-sabotage occurs when our mind is swayed by negative thoughts, and these thoughts become so vivid and loud that we block ourselves from what we can potentially achieve. All of us engage in some form of self-sabotage in one way or another. So, how do we begin to slow and eventually stop this process of self-destruction? Simply said, practice mindfulness. Recognize when your mind is drifting to a dark or negative place and bring yourself back. Recognize that it's okay to have these thoughts, but slowly replace these negative thoughts with positive, healing ones. Recognize that your mind and your body is in constant growth. Oftentimes, the process of self-development and growth takes practice. Personal development is the journey of a lifetime, and no matter how much you grow, you'll always experience this tug of war between your higher self and lower self. Learning to put your ego aside is difficult, but have patience that as you incorporate these habits into your daily routine, it'll become easier and second nature to you. You'll keep raising your threshold for the intensity of challenges you can handle. The more you grow, the more you can remain calm and collected, even during times of adversity. Your source of empowerment comes from your internal well-being. What you think, you become. Your mind creates what kind of world you live in. Eventually, as you build positive thoughts and habits, your external state of well-being follows. Your mind is a reflection of how you live, your actions, and what you believe in. Let's revisit the topic of negative associations you may have in your mind with regards to the habit you want to implement. It's very important that you begin to recognize what kind of emotions, feelings, and thoughts come up when you think about performing the habit. Recognizing that the negative feeling you have is not towards the task itself, rather, it may be a connection to a past experience you've had that correlates with the activity you want to perform. Therefore, to successfully implant any new habit, you have to get to the root of the negative associations your mind has made with that particular activity, and then recondition your mind to make new positive associations. Let us say that you are a student who wants to study mathematics every day for an hour. You don't get around to doing it because you find mathematics to be an extremely intimidating subject. Perhaps you had a teacher early on in life who made the subject so complicated and boring that you lost all interest in it. Since you're not interested in it, you don't make a genuine attempt to try and understand it. Since you don't make any effort to understand it, you don't do well at it. Since you don't do well at it, you've convinced yourself that mathematics just isn't your thing, and that you simply lack the mental faculties to comprehend this subject. Thanks to all these negative associations, it's very difficult for you to sit down and study mathematics every day. It's important to understand whatever you believe about this subject or about anything else is just an idea. Ideas can be changed, and when ideas are changed at the most fundamental level, our lives will begin to transform. If you can recondition your mind to believe differently about your relationship with mathematics, then you can begin to enjoy the subject. If you can get yourself to enjoy the subject, then it won't be so challenging to follow through on the daily habit of studying mathematics every day for an hour. Here's how you'll do it. Affirmations. Write down positive affirmations that counteract the negative beliefs and ideas. Affirmations are always written in the present tense, and they should be repeated as often as possible. So in the case of the example above, if the negative belief is, I am horrible at math, your new positive affirmation can be, I am excellent at mathematics. You have to create positive affirmations to counteract all the key negative beliefs that you are carrying right now. After that, just practice them as often as possible. The more frequently you repeat something to yourself, the more you begin to believe what you are saying. Create and collect evidence. Of course, in the beginning, your mind will tell you you're stretching a little too far from the truth, or that you're lying to yourself. This is normal and to be expected. You just need to persist in practicing your affirmations. Just observe and witness all the counter-arguments your mind is trying to create to deny the new ideas you are trying to implant in your mind. At the same time, start creating the evidence to corroborate your new truth. So, start brainstorming how you can improve your math. Perhaps you can hire a tutor who can help you understand the basic concepts better. Maybe you can buy a book that will help you improve your foundational understanding of mathematics. You have to figure out what will work best for you. For this, you need to know your weaknesses, and then brainstorm and implement the steps that you can take to turn those weaknesses into strengths. It really is as simple as that. Reward yourself. I cannot emphasize enough how important it is to reward yourself each time you do something successful. Rewards can be of different types. For instance, in one person's case, Their reward after an intense gym workout can be the delicious protein shake they get to have on their way back home. Every time you push yourself out of your comfort zone and do something that doesn't feel comfortable to you right now, you have to reward yourself in some way. Whether the reward is abstract, like a feeling you get to experience, or something more tangible, like the delicious protein shake, is something you can decide. Just remember that what gets rewarded gets repeated. If you can change the negative associations in your mind that you have with performing a particular activity and replace them with new positive associations, then you can definitely get yourself to start performing that activity. Rewarding yourself for successfully performing that activity regularly is like reprogramming your mind. Give yourself credit for all the small milestones you accomplish. They may be small to you now, but when you look back days, weeks, months, and years from now, you'll realize those were actually some pretty significant steps you just took. Treat yourself with compassion and kindness. Sometimes we struggle creating new positive habits because we don't give ourselves enough credit. Think of a toddler who's just learning how to walk and take their first steps. They'll stand up, take a few steps, and fall. Eventually, they'll walk longer distances, take longer strides, and before you know it, they're up and running. It's essentially the same concept. You are that toddler learning to walk. All these new habits you are trying to create and build are new to you. At the beginning, you'll take a few steps and you may find that you've fallen. That's okay. That's the beauty of it. You've fallen, but you stood right back up and kept trying. So, instead of being harsh on yourself, start congratulating yourself at all your milestones, even at the slightest improvement. Maybe you decided to go to the gym, but all you were able to do was go for a short 5-minute walk on the first day. Congratulate yourself on that. When you can recognize that these are small but mighty accomplishments, that is when you develop the resilience and motivation to rip through the tides to get to your goal of building new habits. See this as a success, not a failure. Remember, small progress is better than no progress. Traditionally, this is not how we've been conditioned to think. Every time you came back home with the report card, you were chided for not getting straight A's in all your subjects. No matter how well you did, it was never enough. Over time, you adopted this critical attitude. Eventually, you became your own worst critic. Nothing you do is ever good enough. At some level, it may seem like this kind of attitude helps one feel the drive to attain bigger and better things. In reality, it demotivates us and makes us feel bad about ourselves. Instead, let's break that cycle of negative, self-destructive thoughts and try a different approach. Nurture your mind as if you were that toddler learning to take its first steps. Feed it with nothing but positive messages, encouragements, and strong words of affirmation. When you fuel your mind with positive energy, what you give out to the world will also be positive. Feed your own inner soul with compassion and kindness. If you tried and made some effort, you deserve to be encouraged, celebrated, and appreciated. Be compassionate with yourself if you've missed the bar. Practice saying it. It is okay. I will try again. With this approach, you'll be surprised by how much better you'll do next time. Whatever the outcome, remain focused, keep your mind clear of all negative thoughts, and don't lose track of your goals. Slow and steady always wins the race. You'll keep getting better every single day. I promise. It's not what you do every once in a while that matters. It's what you do every day that counts. That is what will create the life you want. Always act wisely and choose wisely. Enjoy this journey you're on. Embrace it. Feel it. You deserve it and are worthy of it. Be patient with yourself. You're doing so well. Chapter summary. Whatever you repeat most frequently, you become. Track your current habits and start identifying which ones are positive, taking you closer to your goals, and which ones are negative, taking you away from your goals. To change anything, you need to first know exactly what it is that you want to change. Add just 1 to 3 new habits at a time. Be sure to specify when, where, and how you'll be performing the new habit. The more specific and clear you are, the likelier you'll be to actually do it. To get yourself to successfully add a new habit to your routine, or to successfully perform any activity you don't particularly enjoy doing right now, you must change the negative associations you have in your mind with it. Practice affirmations. Take action to turn your weaknesses into strengths and reward yourself for successfully performing the new habit. If you're doing even slightly better than yesterday, then you deserve to be appreciated, encouraged, and celebrated. Become your own biggest fan and cheerleader instead of tearing yourself down like a ruthless critic. Chapter 5. Motivation versus environment. You are a product of your environment, so choose the environment that will best develop you toward your objective. Analyze your life in terms of its environment. Are the things around you helping you toward success, or are they holding you back? W. Clement Stone. Most of the time, we give too much importance to motivation and not enough to the environment in which we are operating. There's an intrinsic link between the levels of our motivation, the conditions of our environment, and the standards of our performance. While motivation comes and goes of its own accord, the environment in which we're spending the vast majority of our time has a strong, perpetual influence on our behavior and performance. Our brains and bodies are wired to conserve energy. From an evolutionary perspective, this has helped us with survival, especially when our ancestors used to live in much harsher environments where they faced life and death situations on a daily basis. An example of this can be seen on days where you feel like you don't want to get out of bed or do any type of work. This doesn't necessarily conclude that you're lazy. In fact, you are seeking to act in a way that conserves energy. Requiring the least expensive energy demonstrates that your mind is performing its evolutionary role optimally. If you look at all the things we do, where countless numbers of hours just zoom by and we can't get ourselves to stop, you'd realize that those activities require the least amount of effort to perform. Scrolling through social media apps on your phone doesn't take a lot of effort. However, trying to answer a work email on your phone does take effort. Watching TV doesn't take a lot of effort, but preparing a business report after watching a presentation requires a lot of effort. Our brains are wired to choose those activities that require the least expensive energy. Hence, every time we're presented with two choices, your mind will want to pick the option that is, quite literally, the path of least resistance. This is why you can't rely on motivation alone to help you be productive and get the results you're seeking. If you're living in an environment that is constantly presenting you with temptation, or is simply not designed to support the habits you're seeking to build, you'd have a very tough time trying to feel motivated every day to perform your desired activities. It's like swimming against the tide in an ocean. You can do it for a while, but very soon you'll begin feeling exhausted and jaded. Let's break this down to something that we can all relate to. When I was in college, I was at my heaviest weight. I weighed 275 pounds, little to no muscle mass, and I pretty much lived off of fast food, ramen noodles, drive-in kind of life. I didn't even grow up eating the healthiest of meals either. My mom's home-cooked meals were glazed in oil, deep-fried, and usually cooked with some form of fat. I was used to that. That was my norm. So when I moved away to Berkeley for college, I had to learn how to survive with $100 in my pocket and figure out how that would last me 4 weeks. Let's just say I can make ramen 25 different ways. Yes, I'm pretty proud of that. But when I moved back home from college, I moved back in with my parents for the first few months while I found my own place and got settled back in my life in Southern California. It wasn't until I was diagnosed with gout and my lab work came back grossly deficient that I knew I needed to change my lifestyle and eating habits. My cholesterol was sky high. My kidneys were definitely not performing the way they should in my 20s, and my risk for coronary disease was off the charts. I stared at these numbers for a long time. So what did I do? I began incorporating gym sessions into my weekly schedule. The struggle? My eating habits. The moment I get off the treadmill at the gym, I feel great about myself. I'm hitting all my reps, and I feel like I've made some serious progress. The moment I'm home, I'm greeted with deep-fried everything. There's junk food all around the house, and every meal is cooked with tons of oil, lard, and fat. I couldn't escape the grease or the carbs. I wanted to eat healthy and stay on track for my fitness goals, but I just moved back home, and I didn't want to hurt my mom's feelings either. We've all been in this situation, right? In the example above, my mom is expressing her love and care through the food she makes. But she's failing to recognize the real health issue that I was facing. Trying to eat healthy and exercise regularly was extraordinarily difficult for me, since I was spending the vast majority of my time in an environment that doesn't support healthy habits. The lab work was a wake-up call that gave me temporary motivation to want to change. However, motivation comes and goes. We have very little control over it. Once it's gone, you can't tell exactly when it will return back to you. In my example above, a more effective strategy would be redesigning the environment to the extent that it is possible and feasible for supporting my new health goals. Instead of choosing to live at home, I could have rented my own apartment while I got settled. At the same time, if this is too big of a step, I could have explained my fitness goals to my mom and stressed the importance of maintaining a healthy lifestyle. I could have also suggested, possibly, taking some healthy cooking classes together. This way, she plays an interactive role in my health journey, and it could possibly inspire her to make some changes as well. Remember, implementing new changes in a new environment is not easy and can be very overwhelming. It's important to make these changes slowly and fully embrace what you believe is a positive change in your life. When we choose change, some of the most difficult things we come across is having support from others. Not everyone will support your journey. Not everyone will believe in your journey, but you can't let that discourage you. At the conscious level, our loved ones do want what's best for us. However, whenever anyone in their immediate environment makes any dramatic changes to their life, it's possible for others to feel threatened by that person's choices. You may encounter auto backlash and resistance when you're trying to change. This is because you're reaching outside of your comfort zone, and you're leaving behind something that is familiar and safe. Those around you may be conscious that they too need to make this change, but may not have the same willpower to make any drastic movements just yet. It may bring on feelings of jealousy or hatred, and they may even try to convince you that this change you're working towards is really just nonsense. I'm not suggesting that you cut ties with family and friends. I'm simply reminding you to continue to remain firm and never give in to peer pressure. If you can stick by what is right for you, eventually those around you will learn to accept it as well. They may even become inspired to make similar changes in their life. But never compromise your goals just because your outside noise is louder. Optimize your environment for success. It is possible to overcome the influence of your environment, but it is very difficult to consistently do it every day. Instead of constantly trying to defy the odds stacked against you, take into consideration how you can optimize your environment to increase your chances of success. Let's say that your goal is to work for 7 hours every day with full concentration. With today's ever-shifting world, working from home has become the norm. The problem is when you're working from home, your home office is essentially the kitchen table. With family members barging in and out of the kitchen, your phone ringing often, and being bombarded with many of the demands throughout the day, trying to concentrate in this environment will leave you frustrated. Some days you will succeed. However, it is an uphill battle every day. Instead, your goal should be to minimize the distractions in your environment. By removing the hindrances to your goal, you can be far more productive than when you're trying to override them. This could mean creating a dedicated workspace within your home where nothing other than professional work gets done. You can establish boundaries by specifying your work hours and requesting your family members to not come in unless it was an emergency. You can also keep 2 phones, one for work and another one for personal calls. I know this isn't practical for everyone, but it is definitely something worth considering if you can. As you enter your workspace, you can leave your personal phone in another room. When you leave the workspace, the office phone will remain in your office. These are just a few examples. The actual steps you would take to minimize distractions in your space will depend upon your individual situation and circumstances. You'll also have to take into consideration what is and what is not practically feasible for you. The point I'm trying to make here is that it is a lot more efficient to work on minimizing distractions rather than trying to constantly override them. You can win a lot of times, but it would be very difficult to win a war against distractions all the time. Clear demarcation of space. A very important component of optimal environmental design is to create clear demarcations of space, aka setting clear boundaries. I know this can be challenging if you live in a very small space, but there are still ways to do it. If you can keep separate workspaces for all the important activities you perform, then it would be very easy for you to be productive while consistently maintaining these habits. A lot of people who work from home spend their entire day in bed. The bed becomes their workspace, their dining table, and everything else in between. When it's time to sleep, they struggle to just shut the world out and get a peaceful night's rest. It's very important to understand that the human brain is magnificent. It can be conditioned in any way you want. When you repeat an activity in a specific space, your brain begins to associate that activity with the space in which it is being performed. When you're doing a multitude of different activities in the same space, it causes confusion. The brain doesn't know which activity is to be expected within that space. Ideally, the bed should be used for sleeping, and, if you have a partner, then also for physical intimacy. Apart from that, you can also use it for reading, as that is often a relaxing activity. However, keep digital devices away from bed. There's a lot of research showing how blue light from our digital devices can disrupt sleep, and in many cases, it can also cause insomnia. Once you start using your bed only for sleep, relaxation, and physical intimacy, your mind will begin to associate your bed with only those activities. Hence, it will become easier for you to fall asleep every night. I would strongly recommend against working on your laptop late into the night, or even having a television in the bedroom. I know watching movies in bed sounds like a good idea, but it's not the best strategy for getting a good night's rest. Keep the TV in the living room or another designated area. You'll be less likely to spend the entire night binge watching TV shows, even though it's quite tempting. Similarly, if you're using your work desk only for work, then, over time, your mind will begin to associate it with getting work done. The moment you sit down in your chair and start your computer, you'll be in work mode. A lot of people even go so far as having two different computers and phones, one for personal use and another for work. I know this isn't viable for everyone, but if it's possible for you, then definitely take it into consideration. If you must use the same space for several different activities, then you can create different rituals to indicate what you are about to do. For instance, if you're a student living in a cramped room, you most likely have only one desk to do your work on and also to eat your meals. To separate these two activities, perhaps you can keep a placemat that you use while eating. The moment you put the placemat on the table, you shut off the computer and all other devices. Your mind knows it's time to eat, since the workspace has been closed and the placemat has been pulled out. This is just one such example. You can think of creative ways to distinguish the rituals you perform before each activity, and think of subtle changes you can create in how the space is organized for each activity. This will help you create some demarcations of space mentally, even when physical demarcation isn't a feasible option for you. Make it easy. This goes back to the idea of how our bodies and minds are wired to want to conserve energy. The easier it is to perform an activity, the more likely you'll actually do it. For instance, if you want to meditate every morning, then you can keep a separate mat that you use only for meditation. Create a dedicated corner for your meditation practice and lay down the mat the night before. In the morning when you wake up, the mat is already laid. You just have to sit down and do the meditation. Similarly, if you want to paint more, then keep all the tools out and ideally dedicate a space for just this activity. The easier you make the preparation part, the more likely you'll be able to do the actual activity. If you have to pull out all the tools every single time you want to paint, you'll be a lot less inclined to paint. You must always think about the number of steps you need to take to perform the desired activity. The fewer the steps, the more open your mind will be to do it. If every single time you want to perform an activity you have to think about how to go about it, you'll be less likely to do it. For instance, if every time you want to paint you have to ask yourself questions like, where's my easel? In which drawer have I kept the paint pots? In which room did I leave the brushes? Then you'll be a lot less likely to paint. Your mind will start talking you out of painting because it's simply too much effort to do what needs to be done. Minimize the steps and time needed to prepare for an activity. If you want to start eating a healthy breakfast, then decide the night before what you'll be making. Stack all the ingredients together so that you can easily grab them in the morning. Lay out the plates and cutleries on the table and place the plan you'll be using on the stove. In the morning when you go inside your kitchen, you're already well prepared to do the cooking. Now, imagine the opposite. You go inside the kitchen and you have to decide what you'll be making. You spend a few minutes assessing your pantry and refrigerator. Once you've decided what you'll be cooking, you have to pull out the utensils you'll be using and thereafter lay the table for serving the breakfast. All this feels too cumbersome and you may give up on making breakfast. Perhaps you may end up doing it for a few days when you're feeling especially motivated, but after a few days, you'd give up because it feels too inconvenient for the mornings when you're already in a rush. Being prepared in advance always makes a huge difference and massively increases the likelihood that you'll perform the desired activity. Start small, increment gradually. Another reason why most people fail at implementing a new habit is because they set an impossibly high goal at the beginning. For instance, if you want to start journaling and you set the goal of journaling for an hour every day, it will be very difficult for you to follow through on your commitment. You may manage to do it for a few days when you're pumped up on motivation, but as the motivation dwindles, so will the likelihood of you journaling every day. Instead, set up a very small goal that will be easy for you to fulfill every day. If you've never journaled in your life, then start out by writing just one line a day. To reduce the preparation steps, keep the journal and the pen on the table in advance. Writing one line a day will hardly take a few seconds. It doesn't require a lot of energy and effort. Therefore, it's highly likely that you'll do it, especially if you're also keeping the journal and any other tool you may need easily accessible. As you start doing the journaling and you begin enjoying the process, you can gradually increase the amount of writing you're doing. For a week or two, you can write just one line. After that, you can move on to writing one paragraph every day. After another 1 or 2 weeks, it can become a page, and so on. At any given point, you can push yourself forward only so much. If the activity is too difficult to perform, then you may push through for a few days, but then it would become very hard to sustain the practice. By slowly increasing the muscle load, physical or mental, you are easing yourself into the process of doing that activity. Also, the most important aspect of building a new habit is simply showing up. If you do nothing else but just show up, then over time, you will build that habit. For instance, if you just put on your shoes and go for a 2-minute walk, it is highly likely that once you're in the flow of things, you'll want to spend more time than just 2 minutes for the walk. Lao Tzu, the Chinese philosopher, famously said, "A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step." If you think about the mountain that lies ahead of you, you'll feel far too intimidated to take that first step. It is very difficult for the mind to comprehend the idea of climbing a tall mountain. But if you think about how to build on your habits one step at a time, the mind can easily grasp that concept. Your habit doesn't seem intimidating or far-reached. Once you've taken your first step, something interesting happens. Your mind shifts gear. Previous doubts no longer linger. Instead, you question how much further you can push yourself. Let's revisit the topic of weight loss. You set a goal to lose 20 pounds in 4 months. That's 5 pounds a month. Completely possible, but you know you have to put in the work. On day 1, you put on your gym clothes and you head to the gym. After your workout, you have a healthy meal, and by the end of the day, you're already feeling great about accomplishing this on the first day. You do this consistently the first week, and you step on the scale and notice you drop 2 pounds. Wow, this is what I'm talking about. Our mind thrives on progress. We need to see it to believe it. Half of the journey is showing up. The other half is actually staying consistent. At the beginning of every new goal and building of a new habit, ease yourself into the process. Just like you can't climb the whole mountain in a day, you can't expect yourself to reach your goal in 1 day, not even 1 week or 1 month. It takes time. Don't forget what we talked about in the last chapter, being kind to yourself and giving yourself some grace. The journey is brutal, but I promise you, it's worth it. Chapter summary. You can't rely on motivation alone if you want to perform at optimal levels. Working on structuring your environment in such a way that it supports you in pursuing your goals is a much better strategy. Your environment has a very powerful influence on your performance. If your environment isn't conducive to the goals you're pursuing, then you'll have a very hard time remaining consistent. Trying to constantly overpower the influence of your environment is going to be extremely exhausting. You may succeed at times, but it will be difficult to do it successfully 100% of the time. The more well-prepared you are in advance, the likelier you'll be to perform the desired activity. Think about all the ways in which you can minimize the number of steps you have to take to start the desired activity. Create dedicated spaces for different activities so that your mind becomes conditioned to associate each activity with the corresponding dedicated space in which it is performed. When building a new habit, always start out with a small goal and only gradually increase the workload. Slow and steady does indeed win the race. Chapter 6. How to Unlearn a Bad Habit. Bad habits are spiraling slides that drag you round and round down the narrowing end of a cone that eventually ends up in a dark, tight, confining spot. Good habits are hooked wings that steadily grow in girth and strength. At first, they grasp and climb until those beautiful wings can lift the bearer out of the darkness and above the clouds to heights few ever experience. Richelle E. Goodrich. By now, you should have a very good understanding of the habits that are supporting you in the pursuit of your goals and the ones that aren't serving you all that well. In this chapter, we will dive deeper into how we can eliminate habits that do not serve you any positive purpose. Eliminating bad habits can be slightly more challenging than building new good habits, as you're trying to undo something that you've been performing on autopilot for quite some time. But if you know the right tools, tricks, and methods, then you can train yourself to unlearn whatever bad habits you've picked up over the years. Unlearning a bad habit requires reverse engineering the steps you've applied to building a new habit. What exactly does that mean? It means you have to do exactly the opposite to make a bad habit difficult to perform and unattractive. You must start out by understanding the habit you have adopted and the needs it is currently meeting. Yes, even the worst habits are meeting some of your needs. Otherwise, we wouldn't have any reason to perform them. Identify the habits you want to change. First things first, you must start out by becoming aware of the habits that are not helping you move forward towards your purpose. As we discussed previously, nothing is essentially good or bad. Habits are positive or negative depending upon whether they're taking you closer to your goals or they're taking you away from them. The vast majority of actions we perform on a given day are habitual. It is a staggering percentage, anywhere from 40% to 95%. Even if we were to settle at a conservative number, we can safely say that at least 50% of what we are thinking, saying, and doing happens out of habit. This means we're functioning on autopilot almost 50% of the time. Most of the time, we are not even aware of the habits we are engaging in. We're simply doing them because that's what we've programmed our minds to do for a very long time. In order to identify the habits that are no longer serving you, you'll have to become extremely mindful of how you're spending every day of your life. Hopefully at this point, you've completed the exercise from Chapter 4, where you collected the data about the habits you're performing throughout your day. If not, take this time to go back to Chapter 4 and revisit the exercise. This will help you navigate habits you want to change. After all, you can't solve a problem without understanding the root of this issue and what should be changed. Simply identifying the problem is 50% of the completed equation. The next step would be to understand why you've developed these bad habits and how you can work to change them. Most people make little to no progress because they're trying too hard to charge forward without understanding the underlying root cause that they are facing. Once you've identified the habits you want to change, it's very important to tackle one habit at a time. Soon, you'll see how some habits are related to each other and how all habits affect each other. Like the domino effect, if you successfully change one thing, then you may successfully curb the other habits that are clustered with it. Let's say that in an 8-hour workday, you have allotted 2 breaks, but you have a habit of taking between 4 to 6 breaks a day. In addition to these additional breaks, more often than not, it is habitual for you and your coworkers to use this time for a smoke break. These additional breaks have become an issue when you begin missing deadlines and running late to meetings. Instead, begin scheduling your 2 breaks where you feel you need it most. Most people need a morning break for coffee and a quick breakfast, And this would be a good time for you to write out some tasks you wish to accomplish for the day. Your second break could be after your lunch, towards the end of the day. This allows you to reflect on what you've accomplished and maybe write out a list of things you want to work on for tomorrow. Replacing these smoke breaks with a stretching exercise or going for a short walk to a nearby store with a colleague is a prime example of curbing your habit. Noticing that these breaks you were taking previously were linked to another poor habit, smoking, is the first step to change. The second step is learning to implement a change. This is just an example to illustrate how habits build upon one another. Every discipline affects each other. Transforming one habit can make it easier to transform other habits that are often performed in a close sequence to it. Hence, the starting point is to become more mindful of what you are doing. Set a reminder on your phone to check in with yourself. Ask yourself throughout the day, how am I doing? What am I doing or currently working on? And am I fully present and engaged with what I am currently doing? As you take the time to ask yourself these questions throughout the day, note what your responses are. This will help you recognize which habits are working favorably for you and which ones are taking you away from your goals. More often, we may notice ourselves spending a good majority of our day on activities to pass time, i.e., watching TV, scrolling through social media, browsing the internet. There's nothing wrong with engaging in these activities. Sometimes it's a good opportunity to relax and just catch up with news around the world. But too much of these activities could consume you and your time. Therefore, learning to be mindful of what you spend your time doing will be one of the first steps to making positive changes. Identify the actual problem. One important thing to recognize is that the negative habit isn't a problem in its own right. The habit is there because it is acting as a solution to a problem that you're having. Hence, this negative habit is masking something much deeper. You may not be conscious of this problem, or maybe this is an internal conflict with something you've been trying to make sense of. Whatever it is, think of it as a dysfunctional solution. Let us say that you have a social media addiction. Every evening you spend 3 to 4 hours scrolling through Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Is the problem really that you have a social media addiction? Or is it something else? Most likely, you're spending time scrolling on your phone because you're bored. Feeling bored is the root problem that your addiction to social media is trying to solve. Maybe you spend your time on social media after a long day at work just to catch up with what your family and friends are up to. But if you notice that this is a practice that you do almost every single day once you get home from work, and by the time you realize it, the sun is already set, and you're 2 hours deep into when a celebrity got married, or what an influencer wore to the Met Gala, I hate to tell you this, but you've allowed social media to consume you. Understanding the root cause of your problem is a great step forward. Now, let's dig a little deeper and understand why your habits are masking a much bigger problem. If you're noticing that you're passing time by scrolling endlessly on your phone, ask yourself, what else can I do to fill up the time that I have? Is there something I would rather be doing? Am I putting off something that I know I should be doing? I want to briefly touch on the subject of purpose. All of us have a very unique purpose in this world. Whether you're a fashion designer, doctor, engineer, nurse, teacher, or manicurist, you have a purpose. You have something that drives you to get out of bed every morning, go about your day, and get yourself to work. Now, I want you to take a closer look at your life and assess how you really feel about it. Do you feel like you're lacking some sense of purpose? Are there feelings of insecurity about your job, or maybe even the way you look? Are you dissatisfied with your career choice, or how you've allowed it to consume your life? These are all questions I want you to really take the time to answer, because this is no longer superficial. We've just dived deeper into the core of what makes you, you. If you've answered yes to a lot of the questions above, I'm urging you to take action. Begin making a list of what you feel brings happiness to you. What can fill up your time with meaning and happiness? In order for you to have a clear vision of the road you're walking on, create a map. The destination is whatever you want it to be. Without a vision and definitive goals, you have no direction to guide you. If the true root of the problem is that you are discontent with your life, and the real truth is being masked by the countless hours of you being on social media, then find out what you can do to change the situation. The solution may not be an easy one, and you don't have to implement it fully or even right away. I am a strong proponent of slow and steady wins the race. Make small changes regularly and consistently. Over time, they will compound to become a huge transformation. Change the mental and emotional associations. Anything that we enjoy doing on some level gives us pleasure or comfort, whether we're conscious of it or not. Breaking the vicious cycle of bad habits becomes extremely difficult because the mind begins to associate that particular activity with pleasure. For instance, being on social media provides an escape from one's immediate problems. It offers comfort, pleasure, and entertainment. While you are engaging in that activity, it may bring you some sense of joy or comfort. However, the moment you turn off your phone and silence sets in, those feelings of pleasure begin to fade. You may feel disdain or guilt for wasting so much of your time on social media when you could have spent that time working on a project for work or completing your list of errands. What if I told you that you can break this cycle by changing the mental associations you have with the negative habit? If you can change the mental associations you have with the negative habit, then very soon that habit will become distasteful and you'll become less likely to engage in it. The real question is, how do you do it? The answer lies in reframing the associations by forming new ones. You can begin by taking 2 sheets of paper. On one, write pros, and on the other, write cons. On the first sheet, write down all the positive attributes that come from you scrolling through social media. On the second sheet, write down all the negative things that come with scrolling through social media. Be honest with this. If you approach this with honesty, you may find that you have a much longer list of negatives than positives. Now, make a pact with yourself. I'm not suggesting that you give up your social media accounts altogether. Instead, create a precondition that must be fulfilled before you go on your phone. So, before you begin logging onto your social media accounts, write down on a sheet of paper how being online for 2+ hours is taking you farther away from your goals and all of the negative feelings that associate with it. Refer to that sheet regularly. Once you've finished writing your list of cons, go onto your phone. Over time, you'll begin losing the desire to go onto social media because those are negative feelings that are attached to that habit. You can use this strategy for all your negative habits. Writing things down on paper makes the consequences feel even more real, concrete, and immediate. You're forcing yourself to think about how these actions are affecting you. This makes you more mindful of your habits. Remember, when you have large quantities of something, you're more likely to be consumed by it. The same way spending a lot of hours on your phone or playing video games consume you, negative habits consume the way you think and live. By simply being more mindful, you can curb many of your negative habits to a wider extent. Make it difficult to perform. When you want to build a habit, you have to make it as easy to perform as possible by cutting down the steps needed at the preparatory stage. Similarly, if you reverse engineer this strategy, then you have to add more steps to the preparatory stage in order to cut down a bad habit. For instance, if you delete social media apps off your phone, then every time you want to log onto social media, you'd have to download the app and go through the login process. This will increase the number of steps you need to log onto social media, hence reducing the likelihood that you will actually start scrolling. The strategy may not work for overcoming a deep-rooted addiction, but it will definitely work to quiet an extent, especially if the addiction is minor, which is generally the case for most people. Combine this with the precondition that you have to write down the cons of social media before you actually get down to downloading and installing the app. With this, you significantly reduce the chances of engaging in this negative habit. Enlist the help of others. We are more likely to follow through on a promise that we've made to another person than on one we have made only to ourselves. A good strategy to utilize would be to include a close friend or family member and share with them the habit you are working to break. Remember, be selective about who you are sharing this goal with, as many people in your inner circle may respond negatively to you wanting to change something about yourself. You have to be selective of who you are enlisting to help you reach your goals. This should be someone who truly understands your goals, and ideally, someone who is also living a productive lifestyle. If you have someone that you trust and is a positive light in your life, sometimes the words of others can perfectly capture all that you feel and think. Sometimes the feelings and mindsets of others, like yours, can help maintain a sense of calm by reinforcing your feelings, helping to block out the toxic noise that, in the scheme of things, is just that, noise. The same way we use a buddy system for the gym, you should do the same in trying to break this negative habit. If we're using the same example as above, and we're trying to break our habit of social media, take this opportunity to be outside. Find a new hobby or work on a project that you've been wanting to work on for months, maybe even years. Have your family or friend help keep you reliable for staying on track. Before you know it, you're reinvesting in yourself and seeing life in a whole different light. We make many choices over the course of our day that have a cascading effect on how the rest of our day plays out. For instance, if you make the choice of looking at your phone and browsing through social media posts as soon as you wake up, it could impact your day very differently than if you choose to begin your day with 10 to 15 minutes of meditation. The former can lead you down a much darker path, depending on what you browse and what you choose to fill your mind with. If you're looking at positive quotes, daily motivational videos, or utilizing the tool of social media to add to your inner healing and growth, then you're fueling your mind with what it needs to grow. If you're utilizing your social media to reflect on the life, home, car, or vacation you wish you had, this will leave you feeling less empowered. For example, if you choose to begin your day with 10 minutes of guided meditation in the morning, you're starting off your day manifesting nothing but good vibes. This makes a difference. What you think, you exude. Starting your day off with a balanced and centered mind sets you up to face adversities with a much calmer attitude. Instead of reacting negatively, you'll learn to respond to situations without feeling like you're spiraling out of control. One good decision can create a cascade of several good choices, while one bad choice can cause a reverberation of poor choices. Your power lies in recognizing the fact that everything you do is a choice. How you're living your life, every moment of the day is your choice and yours alone. You're not a victim of your circumstances, but the creator and manifester of your world. The quality of your own life is determined by the quality of your choices. You can make your life whatever you want it to be. It all boils down to the choices you make moment to moment, day to day. Impose a consequence. Just like rewarding yourself for doing the right thing is an excellent tool for conditioning good behavior, punishment can help you unlearn undesirable behaviors as well. You have to make a pact with yourself that every time you indulge in a negative habit, you'll have to do something as a punishment. Again, try to enlist the help of a friend or family member to make sure you follow through on this. It's very easy to break the commitments we make only to ourselves, but we often try to stick to our word when we've made a promise to another person. This punishment can involve doing anything that is distasteful and unappealing to you. For instance, if you eat a bag of potato chips as a snack, then you must follow it up with a full plate of Brussels sprouts for dinner. If you're staying awake late at night watching movies when you should be getting rest for an early workday, then you must wake up at 5 a.m. and go for a run. It would help to write down all the things that you absolutely hate doing and then pick the harshest punishments for the gravest offenses. You can also create a pact stating that the punishment for each offense and sign it. Hand it over to the person who will be holding you accountable, and they will remind you of the pact you've made if you're tempted to break it. Change your environment. Over time, we develop a relationship with the surroundings in which we spend the vast majority of our time. The objects in that environment trigger us to perform specific actions. For instance, the yoga mat sitting next to the entrance of your home reminds you that every morning at 7 a.m. you're supposed to go to yoga class. The water-filled jug on a table reminds you that you're supposed to be drinking 8 glasses of water a day. As I've shared in the previous chapter, it's very difficult to overcome the influence of the environment continuously. Instead, try and change what you can to support the habits that will help you reach your goal. To break a bad habit, you have to identify the environmental triggers that are contributing to the bad habit and curb them. For instance, if you're trying to give up the habit of eating unhealthy food, and your pantry shelves are loaded with packaged junk food, there are only so many chances of success you have. You can use your willpower to not be tempted by them, but there will be far too many times when you will cave. Instead, alter that environment and replace those items with fruits, vegetables, and low-carb snacks. If you live with others who don't share the same fitness goals as you, consider having a designated area in the pantry or fridge where you can keep all of your healthy foods and snacks. You may also ask your family members to place these food items in an area where they're not visible to you. When it comes to habits, if it is out of sight, it is out of mind. We generally give in to cravings when what we want is easily available and accessible in our immediate environment. Of course, I'm giving this example in the context of food, but you can use this same strategy to unlearn any negative habit. The point is to remove, or at least modify, the environmental triggers that are prompting you to take the undesirable action, and then make the activity as difficult to perform as possible. A lot of times, simply removing yourself from your immediate environment and placing yourself in a new one can have a powerful influence on your habits. For instance, if you are like me and you rarely get any work done when you're at home, you may consider packing up your work bag at a local bookstore or coffee shop for a few hours. This is because you haven't yet formed a relationship with this new environment. In the comfort of our home, we're constantly distracted by our bed or couch, and we relate our home to a place that we can come home to after a long day of work and relax. Also, the people in your environment have a very strong influence on your own behavior. When you're at a coffee shop or a bookstore and you're surrounded by others who are also focused on their work, You're responding to your new environment and conditioning your mind to connect your work with that location. Hence, you're not responding in your conditioned ways within this environment. Once you start understanding how human psychology works, by recognizing the powerful influence that your environment and the people within that environment have on you, then you can use this knowledge in your favor. You can intentionally design your environment in a way that supports your goals. You can also figure out how you can spend more time with and around people who are positive role models for you. Be patient with yourself. I've shared a lot of different strategies in this chapter that you can use to unlearn a habit. You can start by using just one of them, a few of them, or all of them. There's no right or wrong way of going about it. You have to figure out what's best for you in terms of the goals you have set for yourself. However, one thing I want to stress is, don't expect to be perfect. Your negative habit wasn't built in a day, so don't expect yourself to get rid of it in a day. Unlearning a habit takes time. You will definitely face challenges, and many times be tempted to just give up. All this is perfectly normal, and perhaps even to be expected. When you fall, don't let things spiral out of control. More importantly, don't view it as a failure. As you're learning to adjust to a different way of thinking, responding, and living, you may have some slip-ups. That is okay. They say you have to perform a habit for 21 to 30 days before that action becomes a habit. During this time, be patient with yourself and give yourself time to adjust. Avoid getting yourself into situations that could create an avalanche of poor decisions. For example, if you created a fitness goal to lose 20 pounds in 4 months, but it was your one cheat day in the month, you can certainly have a slice of pizza, but don't add on a burger and fries to it. Remind yourself of why these goals are important to you and look at your reward in the long run. When you fight your temptations, you are battling your weakness, and that just means you're inching closer to your higher self. Your aim should be gradual and consistent. Aim for each day to be an improvement, not perfection. Be forgiving of yourself. Learn to let go of what doesn't serve you joy and happiness. The only thing that matters is if you got right back on track the moment you realized you fell, or if you allowed yourself to drown in the outside noise. You're never going to be perfect, and that's okay. That is what makes everyone's journey unique and special in their own way. Don't let your mind drift to negative thoughts, because they don't deserve the repercussions of your past, nor do they deserve for it to affect your present. Chapter summary. The vast majority of our thoughts, actions, and behavior occur on autopilot. Practicing mindfulness and awareness is essential for understanding how we're conducting ourselves throughout the day. You have to consistently be aware of the habits you're engaging in throughout the day. Which habits are taking you closer to your goals, and which ones are taking you away from them? The negative habit isn't the actual problem. Even the most negative habit is solving some kind of problem. You have to identify what that problem is and then create a better solution for it. You can train yourself to associate the negative habit with pain instead of pleasure. To unlearn a negative habit, it has to become unattractive to you. Create hurdles to make the negative habit as difficult to perform as possible. Impose difficult preconditions that must be met if you are to indulge in the negative habit. Keep yourself accountable by enlisting a friend or family member to make sure you are sticking to your pact. Making modifications to your environment or moving to a new environment can have a powerful impact on your current habit. Use this in your favor. It's okay to fail, as long as you're resilient and keep getting back on track immediately after a slip-up. Don't allow one bad choice to spiral out of control and become a day, week, month, or an entire year of bad choices. Cut your losses and start over as quickly as you're able to. Chapter 7. Mastering the Art of Self-Control. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Marcus Aurelius. Self-control comes with self-awareness. You cannot control what you don't understand. Anytime we come across something we do not understand, it evokes confusion and fear within us. So, if you do not understand yourself, you will be afraid of being alone with yourself. This is why most people are constantly looking for distractions to keep their mind occupied, because they are afraid of confronting themselves. It's also important to understand that self-control is not about forcing yourself to think or act or behave in certain ways. Real self-control occurs when your mind and body learn to live and function harmoniously. It is important to understand that all of us have different voices within us that represent different aspects of our personalities. Dr. Richard C. Schwartz, the founder of IFS, Internal Family Systems Therapy, has based the entire practice around accepting all these aspects and parts of ourselves. Dr. Schwartz emphasizes how each of these parts is there for a reason and wants the best for us. For instance, you have a critical voice that is constantly berating you for not doing enough, or for simply not doing things well. The instinct is to want to get rid of it altogether, but what we resist persists. The harder you try to get rid of something, the stronger the resistance will be. Instead, you have to sit with all the voices within yourself and try to truly understand what each one is saying to you. Learning to decipher these voices and what intentions it has for you can be interpreted negatively and positively. Your critical voice, that is oftentimes nagging you to do something, can be quite annoying if you choose to ignore it. But if you use it as motivation and as constructive feedback, you may find yourself accomplishing more tasks or goals. Self-control starts in the mind. The mind is a unique supercomputer that has the power to either destroy you or change your life in accordance with your imagination. Whatever you think about, if you think about it consistently enough, you will create your reality based on habits of your thinking. Therefore, self-control starts with the mind. With all these different voices in your head, it's best to practice mindfulness to allow yourself the chance to observe these voices. Not all of the voices in your mind are there to help you. Some can alter your actions by feeding negativity. In order to protect yourself from the voices that are destructive, you must learn to understand yourself and connect with your inner self. Ego-driven versus purpose-driven. With all these voices competing for your attention, learning to separate and listen to the voices that are beneficial to you versus the destructive ones is vital to your growth. The first type is the ego-driven voices. These voices stem from the ego, which by its very own nature is very selfish and reactive. Because these voices are selfish and reactive, they'll try the hardest to capture your attention so you can carry out their intentions. Have you ever just randomly walked over to the refrigerator and opened the door to see what you can eat? Or have you ever walked to the pantry to see if there's anything you can snack on? Do you find yourself doing that many times a day? That's because your hunger voice has taken control of your mind and has conditioned your body to carry out its intention, which is to feed its hunger with food. The hunger voice is selfish in its own nature and will command your mind to fulfill its intention almost immediately. Have you caught yourself being a little angry when you're hungry? Do you find yourself snapping at friends and family when you haven't eaten in a while? Have you heard of the term hangry? That is because your hunger voice is reactive in its own nature, and if you do not feed its intention, it will react negatively. In this case, you'll become upset and angry if your body does not have food. It's only when you feed yourself that you can return to your normal states of calmness. There are those who struggle with this hunger voice, and without self-control, the hunger voice makes you eat and eat until your weight becomes a problem for your health. When it comes to controlling your hunger, it all starts in the mind. Learning to curb your appetite happens in the mind, which then controls the body to not eat. There are many types of ego-driven voices in our mind that are destructive to our mental and physical habits. We must learn to decipher which ones are destructive and learn to tame them. Any voices that we give attention to will control our lives. The second type of voice are purpose-driven voices. These are voices that stem from your own driven purpose. What makes each of us unique is our journey. We each embark on a different journey, and because we are purpose-driven beings, in order to carry out our purpose, we must have some sense of path or direction. Understanding your purpose will help you adjust your compass so you can clearly see the path that you are walking on. These are the voices that speak to you in relation to the goals that you have set for yourself. It will help you tune your mind to always think, speak, and act towards the direction of your goals. In order for you to differentiate between the two types of voices, you must learn to connect with yourself through mindfulness and meditation. One of the best ways to do this is to first escape from the chaos of the things and people around you and connect with yourself through nature. Put away your phone for the day and let go of what is keeping you attached to social media, friends, and family for just one day. Or, if you must, a few hours. If this means turning off your phone for 2 hours and going on a solo hike, or sitting by the beach watching the sunset and listening to the waves, let this be your time to reconnect with yourself. Ask yourself, what is your purpose? What do you want to do for people? How can you serve society with a product or service? What gift do you want to share with the world? These are all intimate questions that require no distractions and the necessary time and space for you to figure it out. You may find that these questions are difficult to answer at first. If you find yourself staring at a blank page, maybe you can begin by writing down things that you enjoy doing, or what some of your hobbies are. Most people find that the things they enjoy doing are actually something they wish they had spent more of their time doing or dedicating a career to. As you take this time to answer these questions, observe your emotions and how you feel as you write and connect with your emotions. You may realize that you have internal battles with two voices in your head. For example, if you aren't happy with your career and you're looking to start a small business or create an online presence where you can sell a product, you may be conflicted with your ego-driven voice and your purpose-driven voice. It's been ingrained in our minds that to live the American dream, you have to follow these exact steps. Finish school, obtain a degree, land a high-paying corporate job, get married, have children, and live this glorious white picket fence life. Nowhere do you see schools teaching children to build their own companies, follow their dreams to be a singer, artist, painter, or author. So, as you take the time to truly find your purpose, you may also feel some sense of fear. Fear of the unknown and uncertainty. This is completely normal. However, Once you find the time to answer those questions and truly connect with yourself, you will then find your purpose. When you can grasp onto what your life's purpose is, excitement takes over, and your mind will automatically shift to figuring out the next steps in order to take action and fulfill this purpose. When your mind becomes focused on the voices that are beneficial in helping you grow your purpose, you'll find yourself forging new habits that are healthy to your overall well-being. Every discipline and habit affects another discipline or habit, and they are connected in some way. You learn to pick up positive habits, such as incorporating exercise and eating healthy as a part of your lifestyle. As your mind grows, your body grows with it. Your characteristics change. You learn to develop mental toughness, whereas before, minor inconveniences may have stopped you from moving forward. These are all very big steps as you continue to change mentally, emotionally, and physically. Learn to focus on the purpose-driven voice. This is how you train your mind to be unstoppable. Embrace and honor your emotions. We live in a culture where we are constantly taught to deny and dismiss our emotions. We're taught to perceive life and every experience we have as black and white. Nothing is truly ever black and white. Nature itself is complex and nuanced. However, we cannot understand or fully appreciate life if we're constantly categorizing our feelings as black or white. You have to train your mind to allow yourself to appreciate the full complexity of the human experience. Your emotions are a beautiful gift. They are what make you human. They enable you to experience life at a much deeper level. Can you imagine what living life would be like if all we had were our thoughts and no emotions? Life would be completely devoid of meaning and any true sense of purpose. We would be like robots or cyborgs, doing nothing more than simply just existing. Emotions are beautiful. They're a gift that deserves to be fully embraced. You cannot appreciate or fully embrace emotions if you are denying them. You have to embrace all of them if you want to live a harmonious and meaningful life. This means allowing yourself to feel positive emotions such as happiness, joy, and excitement. But this also means that you must learn to understand and allow yourself to feel sadness when it arises. It means allowing yourself to face all that you have classified as negative or undesirable. None of your emotions are undesirable or negative in a conventional sense. Even what we perceive as negative is actually there for a purpose. If you absolutely must categorize these emotions, let's say that these are rather undesirable emotions that are difficult and indeed challenging to deal with. Of course, everyone wants to feel happiness, experience joy, be optimistic, and stay positive. No one wants to experience sadness, frustration, anger, or anxiety. Yet, you cannot truly embrace or appreciate those good emotions without also truly embracing the darker emotions. Can you imagine how life would be if all we had was day and never experienced night? Our darker emotions provide us with the contrast and level of context that we need to fully appreciate the beauty of feeling good emotions. This is all part of the beautiful human experience of emotions. Our struggles with self-control are essentially a tug of war with our emotions. Unfortunately, we're taught all kinds of information about the external world, but never enough about who we are and how to manage ourselves. Emotions are not meant to be bottled, denied, or ignored. They are meant to be experienced. There's beauty and empowerment in the experience of every single human emotion. Self-control is learning to master your emotions Experience it, but do not let it control you. Embrace the law of change. One key essential you must understand when learning to develop self-control is learning to embrace the law of change. Accept the reality that everything in this world is constantly changing. The universe, down to the smallest atom, is in constant flux, and the galaxy is always in motion. Understanding this helps you develop the mental toughness to prepare your mind when change does come, but it also helps you develop the discipline to see that the only change you can control is within you. We are all human, so stop trying to deny how you're feeling. Give up struggling with it and trying to constantly change it. Instead, just sit with it. Fully embrace it. Allow all the seemingly negative thoughts and emotions to come up. If you feel like crying, then let yourself cry. If you find anger firing up, then do something to feel and release that anger in a positive way. For example, you can channel that anger towards a super intense workout, or maybe even go to a secluded, safe place where you can scream until you feel that release. Reactive versus responsive. The key here is to experience emotions but not let them control you. Learn to accept all your emotions, let them pass through, and observe every experience mindfully. You have to develop the discipline to see that every emotion that comes up, every emotion that arises only for a temporary moment before fleeting away. This is because everything, including your emotions, is constantly changing. Therefore, someone who has mastered their emotions has learned to observe their emotions as they arise and view them without any judgment. This approach of non-judgment, or without mental commentary, allows you to experience the emotion without being reactive to it. Remember that ego is selfish and reactive in nature, so someone who is not mentally disciplined will succumb to its reactive nature and react negatively. Doing so will attract negative circumstances in their life. However, if you follow the purpose-driven voices, you will learn to approach emotions without judgment. You see that these emotions are a part of the human experience, and reacting to these negative emotions will pull you away from achieving your overall purpose. Any emotions that arise that are beneficial to your overall purpose, you choose to respond to. When you respond, you are consciously making the effort to take action, whereas when you react, you are unconsciously taking action. Learning to respond to your emotions rather than reacting is key to developing self-control. It is never the emotions that are the problem. The issue is in how we treat them and the actions that follow. For instance, let's say you're grieving the loss of a beloved pet. One response can be to completely deny what you're feeling and try to go through the day as if nothing has changed. Another response can be for you to allow yourself to completely feel grief. When we grieve the right way, we allow ourselves to really feel emotions that we would usually push aside or try to suppress. As you grieve, you may stop eating, showering, or even associating with family and friends. You're still trying to process the loss of your beloved pet. But know that in the process of grieving, there is a time in which this grief, too, shall pass. Every day, it gets a little easier for you to wake up and tackle the world. You begin replacing these feelings of grief with purpose. You may find a wonderful way to expand your energy. Instead of crying over your loss, you may choose to spend time at the animal shelter, or raise awareness on animal abuse and find homes for them in honor of your beloved pet. Understand that your emotions are very fleeting and temporary. They're never permanent and are constantly changing. Allow yourself to experience your emotions, but do not become attached to them. It is okay to have that kind of day once in a while, when something extreme happens. But when that one day starts becoming a few days, weeks, or maybe even a year, then your actions have become harmful to your overall well-being. Both of these extreme approaches do not help you heal from what you're facing. Simply put, when you allow your feelings to control your mind, or you become attached to your emotions, it may not allow you to move forward. Instead, allow yourself the chance to experience all of your emotions when they arrive. If they are positive, experience the positive emotions. If they're negative, experience the negative emotions. Learn to channel the frustration that comes with negative emotions through your goals. All of us experience the same failures, the same disappointment, the same heartbreak, the same sadness, but it is how you respond to the failures, disappointment, and sadness that will help you overcome your negativities and succeed. Have you heard of songwriters writing award-winning songs when they're experiencing a heartbreak? At the same time, have you heard songwriters write award-winning songs when they're experiencing love? Have you heard of athletes training extra hard during their off-season after losing the finals, only to win the championship during the next season? At the same time, you've also heard of athletes training extra hard to maintain their championship. It does not matter what the emotions are, either positive or negative. A master of their mind will always channel their emotions to fuel their goals towards their purpose. This is why I emphasize and stress the importance of learning to listen to your thoughts, the voices that are guiding you towards your higher self, and fuel your goals with your emotions. Know that all of this takes time. It is not a two-step process. When you find your purpose, allow your mind to begin setting goals that are in line with your purpose. And the last, probably most important step is to run wild with it. Writing your purpose and goals out on paper is the beginning of change. But when you actually do something about it and take action, that is when transformation occurs. If you can combine this approach with everything else I've shared with you in this book, then eventually you will learn the art of self-control. Life is a fine balancing act between self-acceptance and self-improvement. Accept that your journey will not be perfect, and learn to embrace those not-so-perfect moments in their entirety. I truly believe that those unplanned occurrences to throw you off track and challenge you are actually just a test of how bad you really want to reach your goal. Don't succumb to those feelings of failure. Don't let them be a pitfall. Rather, take everything you've learned in this book and put it to the test. Allow yourself time to feel your emotions. Respond calmly. Come up with a solution and try again. One of the reasons why I stress the importance of learning to respond instead of reacting to your emotions is solely based on the importance of self-control in those moments when you're wrapped around what you feel, not what is logical. When we allow our emotions to get the best of us, most of what we do is not out of logic. We're clouded by our emotions. Have you ever said something to someone in the heat of your frustration, only to regret your words after they have already been said? If you find yourself in a situation where you're feeling angry and all you want to do is react, take a moment, stop what you're doing or want to do, and take 3 deep breaths. Continue to breathe slowly and count backwards from 10. Don't be in a hurry to react to the situation. This is how you learn to control your emotions. Grasp onto those feelings, feel them, but do not let them lead to a reaction. In those moments, when you are counting backwards from 10, focus on your breathing. Observe your breath. Ask yourself, how should you respond to the situation? Whichever conclusion you come to, allow your mind to be at a complete peace and turn off whatever emotion is consuming you at the moment. Our emotions are usually ignited with a flame that grows by how we choose to respond to a situation. Ensure that however you choose to resolve this conflict, that you are resonating with the solution that is free from reactive emotions. The power of time. When it comes to self-control or any habits you're trying to build, there's a very important concept you must remember: time. Time is a critical component that ties all of your actions together and forges them into new habits. Take physical exercise. If you're overweight and want to get into shape, you cannot expect yourself to run a marathon without proper training. The same way you would have to train to run a marathon, your mind takes time to build and acclimate to these small changes you want to make. It takes time to build proper habits, and you certainly don't have to implement drastic changes. As a matter of fact, I highly urge you to not make sudden, drastic changes over a short amount of time. All you need to do to start is focus on growing your purpose every day. Grow 1% a day. When you focus on growing just 1% a day, can you imagine how your life would be 3 months from now? Or how about 6 months? How about 1 year? Or 5 years? Or how about in 10 years? Implementing small, consistent growth is better than implementing one drastic change. Let me give you an example. Imagine a clock. A traditional clock will have the dial, the minute hand, the hour hand, and the second hand. For the sake of this example, we'll focus on the dial, minute, and hour hand. Now, imagine all the minute and hour hands pointing at 12, either representing midnight or noon. To implement a small change would be like the minute hand moving 1 minute to the right. From the perspective of the dial, it does not seem like much, but if you extend the length of the hand out to tit, in this case, representing time, you can see how small a change made a small impact. Now, let's say the minute hand moves another minute to the right. Again, from the dial perspective, it might not seem like much, but if you travel down the length of the minute hand, representing the concept of time, once you reach the tip of the hand, you can see that the minute hand is slightly farther than the hour hand. Eventually, the minute hand will be so far away from the hour hand, and all it focused on was moving 1 step every minute. When it comes to changing your life and developing self-control, take 1 step at a time, but remain consistent with it. However, do not compare yourself with anyone else. All of us have our own journey and our own unique obstacles that we must face. That is what makes us human. We all struggle with self-control and self-discipline. The only difference is how each person chooses to manage their emotions, thoughts, and actions in those moments of temptation. This is where having systems and habits becomes very useful. Having habits and systems gives you something to fall back on when you're feeling lost or unmotivated. During periods of intense grief and emotional pain, my habits have helped me retain my sanity. In fact, I'll go as far as to say they have provided me with a sense of comfort. As human beings, we seek what feels familiar and predictable. Yet life is filled with unpredictability. Just when you think you have it all figured out, you get thrown another curveball. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but this cycle will never end, and it actually isn't meant to end. We'll always be thrown curveballs, and we'll always have to find new solutions to new problems. It's because we're always meant to achieve better, be better, and reach higher. How to fight off temptations. Temptation will always be there, and you'll always have different voices inside you, prompting you to take different actions. It's the same story for all the daily battles we face. For instance, let's look at procrastination. Even the most productive people struggle with procrastination. You can't expect someone to have 100% drive 100% of the time. There will always be a temptation to put off a school assignment or a work project because we'd rather be doing something else, something more fun. For some, they will easily succumb to the voices that tell them to put off work for just another day. After all, life is short, and why not, right? Whereas for others, they have built systems and habits that prevent them from steering off track. We'll dive deeper into systems and habits in the next chapter, but for now, I want you to understand how to fight off your temptations. This could be applied to every single aspect of your life. Whether you're fighting off the temptation to procrastinate, or you're fighting off the temptation to have that slice of pizza, overcoming temptation begins with your willpower. When you are at the brink of temptation, remind yourself of all the reasons why you have to stay on track. Say it out loud. If you're trying to lose weight for a wedding, or just to be healthy in general, say your fitness goals out loud and walk away. When you say your goals out loud and you hear them, you're taking control of the situation. Firmly grasp your temptation and set it aside. Do not let yourself cave because you can start over again tomorrow, or I'll be better after I have this slice of pizza. That is not how goals become reality. Stick to your plan and trust your process. I'm sharing this with you to help you understand that the challenges we face, even those we experience daily, are all part of the human experience. Learning to build upon your self-control and self-discipline habits will lead to stronger willpower. It all begins with you and how to choose to shape your mind. No matter how far you've come, you will always be one step from your next temptation. Respond and choose wisely. Chapter summary. Self-control comes with self-awareness. You have to be aware of your thoughts, emotions, actions, and behavior. Self-control doesn't come with forcing yourself to be a certain way. It comes with complete and unconditional self-acceptance. All the voices inside you want the best for you. You just have to sit with each one as it emerges and understand the intention it has for you. Resisting or denying these voices creates problems. Cravings are an indication that your system requires nourishment and that certain needs are not being properly met at the moment. Completely feeling an emotion doesn't imply acting on it. The best approach is to feel whatever comes up while proactively taking action to do things that you know you like and enjoy doing. Every person struggles with the same mental and emotional challenges. It's important to realize that most of our struggles are not individual but universal in nature. Your struggles with self-control don't indicate that there's something wrong with you. They indicate you are a normal human being having a regular human experience, just like everyone else. The only difference between highly productive people and those who choose to stay stagnant is how they've made the conscious effort to live their life despite what they're feeling. Temptation can never be avoided. When you are faced with temptation, say your goals out loud and take control of the situation. Allow yourself to feel those emotions, but choose to grow your willpower through self-control and self-discipline. Chapter 8. Building solid and reliable systems for consistent progress. Once you know your goals, you should measure your progress to achieve them. Seeing your favorable progress will serve as positive reinforcement to continue your hard work, and seeing negative progress will alert you to something you should change to get you back on track. Jerry Bruckner. I want to congratulate you on reaching the final chapter of this book. The fact that you've stuck around proves that you're really ready to change your life for the better. I hope you haven't just been reading this book, but you have tested all the ideas, methods, and techniques that have been presented to you. It's okay if you haven't been perfect about it. In fact, perfectionism is a trap that leads to failure. The all-or-nothing attitude keeps us in limbo, where we tend to make no progress at all. Remember, even a little progress is better than none. Focus on what you know you are capable of. We've come to terms with the fact that you and I are not perfect. Nobody is. We're all still a work in progress, but we can develop excellence through practice and skill development. Building habits is also a skill. It doesn't matter how many times you've failed at implementing new habits. With all the tools I've given you in this book, you will succeed at building these new habits. You just have to keep working at it and trust this new journey you've embarked on. Seek progress, not perfection. An important part of tracking your progress is getting into the habit of writing things down. When we try to keep track of things in our mind, we generally don't have an honest and realistic understanding of what is concrete. A lot of times, we think we're doing very well, may tell a different story once we look at the written statistics. The opposite is also often true. We may think we're doing far worse than we actually are. Tracking your performance can help you gain an objective understanding of how well you are actually doing. Create your own habit tracker. A habit tracker is a tool that you can use to track whether you completed a particular habit or not. You can create a habit tracker on paper, on your phone, or on your computer. You can also write down the habits you're tracking on a whiteboard and keep checking it off for each day of the week. Personally, I'm an old-fashioned, and I prefer to have the habits that I'm working on in a journal. I write down all the habits I'm working on tracking and check them off as I complete them each day. This is my way of keeping myself reliable. If you find it easier for you to track your habits through your phone, there are lots of applications on your phone that you can download. Whichever method you use, it has to be feasible and reliable. We become more conscious of something when we have to account for our actions in writing. For instance, maintaining a food journal automatically makes you more conscious of what you are eating. It is slightly harder to slacken and gorge on that huge pizza when you know you'll have to write it down in your journal. If you haven't tried this out, then give it a try. You'll notice that you become more conscious of what you fuel your body with. A lot of people use a calorie tracker on their phone that holds them reliable as they are working towards their fitness goal. This is no different from a habit tracker. If you can see your data, you certainly can track your results and progress. Your habit tracker will constantly remind you of the actions that are important for you to take every day in order to live a life that is fully aligned with your personal values. There's also something deeply satisfying about checking off the task every time you complete a habit. It is an instant visual reward, and the human mind runs on pleasure and joy. Over time, what used to be a task that you have to check off is going to be incorporated in your daily routine as a habit, a positive one. You'll no longer have to think about doing it. Your mind and your body will adjust and do it automatically. You'll also thrive off of the positive results, and you won't want to break the chain of good habits that you've created. What to track and what not to track. Initially, when I decided to start tracking my habits, I created a long list of items that I wanted to check off every day. Being a perfectionist, I used to think that everything should be done exceptionally well, or it shouldn't be done at all. That kind of mindset often led me to stagnation and failure. I won't take any action because I was trying to convince myself that it is only worth doing something when it is done to an extraordinary level of perfection. My problem was I was creating an insanely exhaustive list of habits that eventually burned me out. It was unrealistic of me to be able to track my progress, and after a few days, that list was becoming too intimidating for me. I wasn't able to keep up with the demands, and it left me feeling very helpless. If this sounds like you, then I would caution you against making such an impossibly exhaustive list of habits that you just can't keep up with it. It's better to track a few things, or maybe even just one consistently, than to try and maintain a long list of habits that you cannot work on daily. A few years ago, I read a fascinating book that changed my thinking and how I wanted to write this book. It's a book by Gary Keller, who's the founder of Keller Williams, one of the largest real estate companies in the world. The book is titled The One Thing. As the title suggests, the book is all about identifying the one thing that will make the greatest difference to your results. Right at the beginning of the book, Gary shares how he was able to help his team multiply their results by asking a simple question. What's the one thing you can do this week such that by doing it, everything else would be easier or unnecessary? I want you to start asking this same question. Instead of trying to do too many things at a time, try focusing on the one thing that will get you the maximum results. It's very important to understand that while a lot of things may seem necessary, there's always just one thing that will bring you maximum success. Habits have a way of creating a domino effect. Maintaining one good habit often leads to other good habits. For instance, if you are exercising daily, then you'll be less prone to eat unhealthy foods. When people take the time to put in work and to change their negative habits, the choices they make will be a reflection of the work they put in. Take the example of exercising and eating healthy. If you put in 1 to 2 hours at the gym every morning, you would think twice before ordering a double cheeseburger. You feel less inclined to eat unhealthy foods if you are exercising regularly. As you are taking a moment to reflect on various aspects of your life you want to focus on, think of your health, work, relationships, finances, spirituality, mind, and emotions. I would suggest that you note down all the key areas of your life and then identify the one habit that is the most important to track and maintain. This list can look slightly different for you based on what is most important to you and what your core values are. Once you have the list ready, Ask yourself, what is the one thing you can do that will make the biggest difference in each of these areas? You can choose to track one habit in each of these areas, or you may choose to track more than one habit in each area. That is completely up to you and what you feel you can handle changing at a time. If you're just beginning on this journey of reinventing yourself, remember to stick with simplicity. With a smaller list, it is easier to focus on what is truly important and what would make the greatest difference to your results. Not everything is equally important, and not everything is going to bring you the same amount of return on investment. You just have to take the time to identify what would make the greatest impact in your life. What to do when you've missed a day. The best thing you can do when you've missed a day is to not let that create a ripple effect. Don't let one day turn into 2, 3, 4, so on and so forth. The more days you miss, the harder it becomes to get back on track. Of course, there will be interruptions to your schedule once in a while. Life happens. You just have to do your best to stick to the habits that matter most to you. And when you do miss a day, get back on track immediately. In fact, if you missed doing something that is part of your morning schedule, I would strongly recommend that you try squeezing it into your evening. Maintaining a chain of good habits is visually and mentally rewarding. Once the chain is broken, it can take time to reestablish it. As you are working on your goals and habits, utilize your partner, your family, or your friends to help lift you up. It takes a lot of self-reflection and self-love to get through these hurdles, but I know you will thank yourself for this journey because it is well worth it. Parting words of encouragement. Thank you for picking up this book and allowing me to be your guide on building greater self-discipline and positive habits. I really hope you've enjoyed reading this book as much as I have loved writing it for you. I also hope that you haven't just read this book, but also tested and implemented the various ideas presented to you. I would suggest that you don't allow this book to become another one of those books that you read once and never revisit again. Instead, hold on to this book, reread it, and revisit the different concepts and ideas. Every time you reread this book, you'll likely discover something totally new that you hadn't noticed previously. This is because as you start practicing the concepts, you'll grow as a person. When you're rereading this book after a while, you'll shed new light and new ideas that you would want to change in your life. This new you will notice and discover things that the old you may not have observed. Self-improvement is a never-ending journey. You have to constantly keep shedding your old skin to emerge into your new self. It's fascinating and incredible how we have so much power to constantly reinvent ourselves and our lives. Building good habits begins with practicing a higher degree of self-awareness. You have to be willing to take a closer look at yourself and your life to discover your strengths and weaknesses at any stage of life. It's only by being self-aware that you can identify those habits that can create the biggest difference to the quality of your life. The better you get at identifying the few things that create the greatest impact, the more your life will improve. It doesn't matter what your past has been. Right at this moment, you can redefine who you are and the kind of life you want to live. When you know where you're headed, it's easier to break down your steps in the form of daily habits that take you closer to these goals. Every time you check off a habit on your habit tracker, you're moving one step closer to becoming the person you want to be. You can have everything you want. This is your life, and it is your duty to live your life on your own terms. Never forget that a reward is a far better teacher than a punishment. Be sure to constantly reward yourself for every milestone that you accomplish. Your mind is an incredible tool that you can mold and condition in whatever way you desire. Take advantage of this opportunity to reinvest in yourself and find the pieces that make you whole. As you break down different aspects of your life, don't forget to celebrate the great things about you as well. This journey of self-awareness is just a chance to be that better version of you. So, don't forget to be kind, loving, and patient with yourself. I'm really proud of you for all the progress you've made thus far and for committing to make a positive change in your life. Building positive habits is not an easy feat, but those who are consistent can rejoice in the rewards of all that they have persevered. Here's wishing you an incredible life ahead. Sincerely, Duke of Noble.